to WBHF Radio October 31st for the 8th annual Halloween Spooktacular, 9 p.m. till midnight. Brought to you by Southern Cove. Because these guys aren't getting any younger either.
Well, that was
that
really was uncalled
didn't
for.
Need to hear that.
Welcome, all are welcome. Crossover children.
Wait, we're not talking about movies yet. Good morning. That's what it looks like every morning I come out here. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our 8th annual Halloween Spooktacular. Great to have you along, and big shout out to Southern Cove for sponsoring the show. I'm Alan Sanders, and I will let these gents introduce themselves. We'll go across the way to a voice you hear every Saturday. BK. Let's do that.
Oh, there we go. Now I can hear something.
There we go. Somebody was messing with the board. Maybe Gremlins. Gremlins are already in here.
Or ghosts.
The Gremlins that were in here when you were in here.
Yeah, they were working hard.
Good evening.
Good evening, BK.
I'm
From
the
BK on the air.
1,
I like
2,
to count things.
3, 4, 5.
Three knuckleheads.
Good to be here. The Halloween. I can't believe it's the eighth Spooktacular. That just I can't believe it, but I can't at the same time. So. But I always look forward to it. I'm glad we're all here tonight.
And the voice that generally is in here when I can't be here, Walt.
Hey, Walt Murray, and I think this is my 5th.
Sure, I am always up for a 5th.
Always up for a 5th.
5th, always. In fact, can we make it the 5th next time?
Yes.
Won't you be conservative and make it an 8th?
Actually, we'll call it the 5th plus 4.
5th plus 4. There you go.
Oh, okay.
I like it.
As long as we've got 5th in the name from now on. We're
5th
good.
from now on. Well, folks, if this is your first time around being here for our Halloween Spooktacular.
There'll be some Hollywood in there.
Hollywood! I was thinking movies. Hollywood! Talk about a movie that should scare you now.
I'm Holliswood.
I'm Holliswood. Well, Hollywood. And we are now off the air.
Great. I wonder what it took. I was wondering.
5 years ago, we could do accents. We can't do that
Sure,
anymore.
yeah.
No,
It's
we
that
can't.
quick.
So, but welcome back to you guys. It's been a year since we've been in studios for our Halloween Spooktacular. And since our last one, the promo we ran last year, has been recognized by the Georgia Association of Broadcasters.
That's right. Thanks to you two guys, all three of us came in and just put together a spot, and someone seemed to like it. So the Georgia Association of Broadcasters gave us one of their awards, which is called a Gabby Merit Award. So, hey, we're very appreciative of whoever listened to it and liked it and bestowed the award.
Well, I'm still not sure it's our show because it's the Spooktacular.
Well, you know what? I think that's going to make it a collector's item, to be
Oh, I
quite
think
honest.
so too. Yeah,
Misspelling on
the award had a misspelling.
Maybe it was supposed to be Sylvester, the Spooktacular.
It actually kind of looks like Spock, though. When I saw it, I'm like,
the
Spooktacular.
Spooktacular.
It's like live long and
We'll
prosper.
go with that.
Yeah.
Ooh, we could do a horror Star Trek crossover mashup sometime.
I'm in. We'll do it as soon as we're done
They
here.
did do a Halloween episode called Cat's Paw, which was very kind of scary. Had witches and black cats and wizards in it and kind of stuff like that.
Things
But they
that
were
go-
aliens, though. They were aliens.
Well, of course, it's Star
Do you
Trek.
remember that episode?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I do. And not
That
as
was
well
good.
as you do. I got to go back and rewatch them all from the beginning. He has them memorized. Like,
Yeah.
he has every Star Trek episode and season
The
memorized.
classic.
Well, and I've
knows
probably
who's
watched
in it.
through the series, I don't know, 10 times in my life.
The classic.
And you start talking about one, I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that one, but I couldn't have come up with it myself.
Right.
Well, even the old show has a Halloween tie-in, as we well know. The Michael Myers mask in Halloween with John Carpenter is a William Shatner Captain Kirk mask.
That's right.
Painted flat gray.
That is a cool story where they sent him to the store and they couldn't find anything. Say, well, I'll just grab this, cut the eyes out, paint his face, and put some different hair on it.
It worked.
Yeah, it
Really
created
all
an
that matters.
iconic character, didn't it?
And I never knew it was him. When you look at it, you don't think it's him. But when they show you one of the masks from, I think, the Don Post company that manufactured those in the 60s and early 70s, you're like, yeah, they just took the hair out of it. That's Captain Kirk. That's William Shatner.
I do think, though, by painting it white and then putting it across a monster face like a wrestler's head and kind of stretching it, it looks like Captain Kirk got bit by a lot of bees.
Well, it looks like him now.
He looks
Yeah.
like him now.
No kidding.
Yeah. Shatner had an interview not too long ago where he said, yeah, I keep hearing that, and if that's the case, don't they owe me a lot of money?
Yeah.
He was laughing about it. I thought that was funny.
They owe me some cash.
Years waiting
My
Botox
likeness.
has made him look just like the mask.
That's right.
So we've got coming up, folks, just so you know, we've got several things we're going to be covering over the course of the next 3 hours. This is a little bit like what you get on Saturdays with BK on the air, but all Halloween flavor. And we try to figure out how to mix it up just a little bit. We know that every year, sometimes it may seem like repetitive for us, but we know we've got a different audience all the time. But we also have loyal listeners, and so we do try to shake it up. BK, you came up with the categories this year. We've got 2 different movie/show categories and then a memory category.
Yeah, I thought, and we're eventually going to repeat stuff, but they come around every year. So if we repeat some stuff, that's okay. It's still interesting stuff. We're going to talk about some of our favorite non-monster films that scared us. Movies that are scary without supernatural ghosts or monsters or things like that in it. That's more based maybe on the real world or something like that. It doesn't have to be a documentary or a true story, but it could certainly be based on one. How about some early childhood memories from like school? Or what did you do at school leading up to Halloween? What was your favorite memories of like maybe what was the earliest costume you remember getting and wearing? And do you have any memory of that? I certainly do, because all that stuff I don't forget. Mathematics and science, I forgot all of that. But the important stuff to me, I remembered all of it. And I also want to throw in a costume. If you could make your own costume or have your costume made of anything, that would be the most scary thing to wear to a party, where money's no object, and designing it anything. What would it be?
No job is too big. No fee is too big.
Nothing. There's no limitations. What costume would you have made for yourself, and you'd look just like the character if you went to a party wearing that costume, and it would scare everybody? And we're going to talk about maybe some movies that were told, hey, Walt, you got to see this movie. It's going to scare the crap out of you. And you watched it, and you're like, that didn't scare me at all. So I've got some of those movies, and hopefully we'll have some of those. And we got a special guest coming up later in the program.
Actually, coming up in about 15 minutes.
An author, yeah. There was a book that came out called Jaws 2, The Making of a Hollywood Sequel. And it was written by Michael A. Smith and co-authored by Louis R. Pisano. And we're going to have Michael A. Smith on with us to talk about it, and we'll ask him some questions. And we're all fans of Jaws 2, and I figure Jaws 2, it's one of the Jaws films. It's considered a horror film. So
it's honestly
we'll talk to him tonight.
The only sequel in that franchise that I think is worth watching.
I agree with that
100%, and I'm sure he will agree with us as well. So I'm wondering when did it strike him to write the book? I know he must be a fan too, so we'll pick his brain and interview him and see what he wants to talk about. This is going to be good.
Well, that's going to be coming up in about 15 minutes. We'll do that right at the bottom of the hour. Of course, we want to be, once again, shout out to Jason and Buddy Frederick, the owners of Southern Cove. They sponsored the show last year, and they jumped right at it to sponsor the show again this year. So as you're doing your shopping and already decorating for downtown, we're getting ready for the holidays, don't forget to stop by Southern Cove. Some really cool, unique gifts over there. They even have the fake gift boxes. So it looks like you bought somebody something that has, like the one we got last time was like the training pants for your grandfather, and it was like all decorated, and it says, with scented packs and all these, and it looks like it's a product. It looks like diapers for grandpa, but you can put something else in it, and so you can watch somebody go to open it like, oh, thank you, I've always wanted this, and see how well they can lie to you about the crap gift you just gave them.
So how funny would it be to put really training pants for Grandpa in the box?
Well, then I think at that point you kind of blow the joke.
Or you give it to somebody who you don't really care about making mad.
It's not a joke, Dad.
They've got a couple other ones that I don't know that I can mention the specific product on the air. I can just say Walt would probably have to have an inhaler from laughing so hard.
Oh, so smart.
Okay, I'll have to stop back over there.
Yeah, it's some good stuff.
Saturday.
As you get closer to the holidays, they get those joke gift boxes so you can wrap stuff in. Got some great Yeti stuff. They've got some great coolers. They've got some of those insulated, like with a little suction cup. If you go on the boat, you can put your beer in. And I don't know what they call those, but I know my wife's got a couple of them. I haven't been able to afford one, so it is what it is. So Southern Cove, go check it out.
Beverages?
You can put whatever beverage you want. I'm an adult, so it's an adult beverage.
An Allen beverage.
The Allen beverage.
It's Halloween, so I'll do it. Here we go. Southern Cove.
Who are you
That's our
imitating?
favorite monster,
It is. We did that last year.
Yeah.
We talked
Werewolf.
about werewolf for me. That's
Werewolf's
definitely
my favorite.
that may come back around in your whole costume category.
Yeah, sure it might.
Yeah.
Although I did put a couple of runner-ups in that. Like if you couldn't do the prosthetics, if it couldn't come out right.
But I'm saying if you could have this costume made and it looks just exactly like it does in whatever it is, movie, TV, or whatever, and you can have it made, what would you make to scare somebody and wear it? I think we're going to have some good ones.
Oh, good. All right.
I got a couple of good ones.
Walt, also we're going to mention you went on a cemetery tour.
I did, yeah.
And you said you wanted to talk about all the phases of death.
Yes, I learned something.
Not Faces of Death, which is something that was really popular in the 80s, but Phases.
I was going to say that was a great series of movies. It was not. It was a weird series of movies.
No, it was strange. I think they were supposed to be real, and then you realize later they staged a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah, all of it, I think.
But they sold it as,
you know what?
we captured the real death of
That
people.
made me feel better that they staged it because I'm like, oh, good. I didn't want to see the real thing.
Yeah, no
You see Leroy grinding those gears of that bus? He just...
And the monkey and
Guy in the wood chipper.
But yes, my wife and I did.
Oh wait, no, that was Fargo. or what was that other movie? Something in Dale vs. Evil. Did you ever see that?
Oh yeah,
it was.
I know what you're talking about. I don't think I ever
something
saw
in
it.
Dale vs. Evil. Oh my god, with Alan Tudyk as one of the guys.
Yeah,
so funny. Have you ever seen that, BK?
No, I've never heard of that.
Tucker and Dale vs. Evil.
Whoa,
Okay,
no,
you owe yourself. Well, first of all, did you like
Is it a
Shaun of
show
the Dead?
or a movie?
No, it was a movie.
Oh, I love Shaun of the Dead. I love the Shaun of the Dead.
It's a horror comedy, but the funny thing is these two guys are like rednecks in the bayou, and they think they're getting ready to fix up their summer place. And these guys are down-home redneck, but they're simple country folk. And all these college kids show up, but they keep having like accidents, and they're like, I swear to God, these kids are on a death cult. It's the funniest. It's hysterical.
Well, if it's on the same level of Shaun of the Dead,
It is. It's going to have the same horror and the same gore of Shaun of the Dead, but told in a very comedic. And by the time you're at the end, you're like, I could totally see how everyone would have just assumed that this was the horror setting of like Friday the 13th or some other slasher film. But these two poor guys are like, they're innocent victims of the whole thing.
Wow.
I can't believe you haven't heard of Tucker and Dale vs. Evil.
I haven't seen that, no. Was it a theatrical film
Yes,
or a
came
direct?
out in the movies.
Why did I miss it? What year was that?
Not that long
5
ago.
years ago?
5-10 years ago,
Pretty
maybe.
recent.
I
Yeah.
did not see it. Shaun of the Dead was hilarious, though. The best part of Shaun of the Dead
Shaun
is when
of
he
the
wakes
Dead
up
is
and
great.
walk into the store in the morning and all the zombies are around him and he never sees them. And
Yeah.
that just shows
Well, because they
what
do that
tunnel-
same shot
what-
earlier when everybody
Right.
that's normal is doing the exact same
What
thing.
kind of tunnel vision do you have where you just don't notice anything like that? That says a lot, I think. Oh, and one more thing. Tonight, if you're the first person to come down here, if you're local, now if you're not local, you can drive a long way if you want, but it's more locally. If you can come down to the studios of WBHF, what are we, 7 North Wall Street here? Mm-hmm. In the middle of downtown, wait till the train passes by.
It's a big window. We'll be able to see
Grand
you.
Theater. Yeah, we can see you. Come in front of the window, but come with the word Spooktacular spelled out on a piece of paper and show it to us through the window and wave at us in a costume. And I've got a huge bucket of candy just waiting for you with your name on it if you can come down to the studio sometime tonight before we go off there at midnight. And it's yours if you come down and just do that one simple
And
thing.
in honor of our award, you don't even have to spell Spooktacular right.
You don't have to spell it
Spell
right.
it phonetically the best way you know how.
Spooktacular.
It's
Yeah, and if you point at it and mouth it,
Fuck that. The
mouth it out
Spooktacular.
with your mouth, that's fine too.
He snorted over there.
Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't drinking coffee.
Anyways.
By the way, it's a
there you
little
go.
bit longer. Tucker and Dale was 2010, so 12 years ago.
Wow.
Still fairly recent.
You know, the older you get, the faster it goes, right?
It does feel like
Hey, wasn't the 2000s just a couple of years ago?
just
the aughts.
the aughts.
2001?
We'll also have a couple of stories. My buddy Chris Frew, who is a writer at heart, he sent me a couple of very short shorts that we'll read along the way. We'll go
Who
through.
wears short shorts?
We wear shorts.
We wear short shorts.
I
If you
loved
dare
those
wear
commercials
shorts.
as a kid. Of course, I was like
I wasn't
10 or
sure.
11.
Was that
I was
Nair?
10 or 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure why I liked them,
I
but
wouldn't
yes,
either,
I liked
but I
those.
liked them for
those
and
commercials.
more the older I got. Yeah. So you got some short shorts to wear to read.
I have a couple of shorts to read, but I might just look at it and leave you guys in.
Have you noticed we never get through a topic?
I'm still waiting to finish introducing everything we're going to talk about in the next 3 hours.
He's got stuff left over from last year that he didn't read.
So, candy, the last thing that you eat in the bank.
Snickers satisfied.
We hear this thing called COVID's coming. And,
No!
let's get to that from
And
a few years
all of you guys we're all three from different states. We're born in different states. I printed out each one of us.
State of confusion.
Insanity.
Yeah. Denial.
Stupidity.
I live in the state of denial right now.
All of us are going to read one of the most
state
haunted
of
places
disappointment and confusion
from each one of our states that we're from. So Alan's
disillusionment. I wake up and go, what have I done wrong?
Irritability.
Something. I look at my career path and I go, I'm having a good time, and yet I'm finding it really hard to make ends meet. Whose fault is this? Is it mine? Is it the government? And that's a scary story.
Let me change that. If we have time, we'll get to the 3 spooky places from each state that we're from. And
there's a reason that one person comes in here with a stack of things, and I have 2 things scribbled on the back of a piece of paper.
Hey, that's how J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter. I mean, come on. That's nothing wrong with scribbling something on a
Right. We've got the next J.K. Rowling right there.
Yeah.
He looks it.
I think we have the next Fred
A
G.
master of
Sanford
completion of the big task.
You got that right. I've started the Great American Novel about 8 times.
Only 8. Only?
Well, 48.
Alan will have a spooky place from Michigan. You'll have one, Walt, from Georgia, and I'll have one from Alabama. So I just thought I'd make it personal for all the one of the most haunted places from each state.
How could you narrow it down to 1 for Alabama?
Oh, there was much more. There was much more.
You just have to say, I'm from Alabama. Run away!
I'm from Alabama. Hear the screams?
We'll insert a scream.
Yeah.
On this.
I will. I'll probably edit this.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll have
Like
2 different. There'll be 2 different director's cuts of this because we'll put it on the Wilder Ride. By the way, if you can't stay up for all 3 hours, but you want to be able to catch the show, we will, as we've done for the last few years, we will make sure that we put this out on our respective podcasts. BK has the BK Escape Pod podcast. We've got the Wilder Ride. I think we have the Wilder Ride.
It's there.
I mean, it's
simmering on the back.
I know. I have to pay the bill every month to keep it live.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
which, by the way, Patreon.com.
Patreon.com/the Wilder Ride. Be generous.
I know the BK Escape
Recession
Pod.
is coming.
The BK Escape Pod is there. I can guarantee you.
Oh, there's a horror story.
Yes, we're passing the proverbial hat here.
You talked about you wanted scary movies that are set in reality. We've got midterms coming up.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oof.
That's scary.
Let's not be that scary.
Okay.
Let's just go with the psychopaths.
The IRS wants to hire 87,000. We can't do that.
No.
Keep it clean. Keep it clean. So, all right. So we're gonna have our first break coming up here, and then what we'll do is, as we come to the bottom of the hour, we are expecting the author of the Jaws 2 book, the Jaws 2: The Making of a Hollywood Sequel,
Michael Smith.
Michael Smith will be joining us, so we'll get that Zoom up here. And you folks enjoy, kick back, relax. We're going to have a lot of fun. I think we're going to quote the guy from last year who describes the Halloween Spooktacular in spooktacular fashion.
Y'all sound like 3 people at a bar talking.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yes. That's
thank
us.
You.
Well,
Thank
that's
you very
awesome.
much.
We're having a good time.
And
That's on my resume
And I'm the designated driver when we go.
Really?
But I can still have fun. Yeah.
Aw. Well, we finally got you up to high-octane coffee.
No, that's decaf.
That's
I drink
decaf?
Yeah,
No, not here.
Yeah, I bring my own decaf.
No, you haven't in a while.
Well, it doesn't bother.
He slowly.
I drink decaf
It's
when
like,
I can.
I'm going to resist being an adult as long as I can.
No, I just
I'm
don't
not
need
drinking
I just don't
coffee.
need my heart to blow out of my chest. That's what that does to me now. I'm like, I can't
You got to
handle
stay
that
up till
anymore.
midnight and drive
That
home.
was-
Oh, no, I can do that. I'm all right.
All by yourself?
Yeah. Will you follow me, Walt?
You follow me home?
No.
Will you guide me? Will you hold me? No, definitely not. No holding.
I'll text Stacy why before you get there, so she won't be surprised. Why is there a car pulling in behind you? Don't worry about it.
Just shh.
Doesn't have blue lights, so it's okay.
Okay.
It's the,
For a change.
you're not hearing, sir, would you please step out of the vehicle?
You've had too much.
Do you know
decaf
why
coffee.
I've pulled you over?
We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll see. Hopefully, we'll be joined by our author, our first guest, and our 8th annual Halloween Spooktacular, brought to you by our good friends over at Southern Cove.
Rock & Shop, your home for classic vinyl, downtown Cartersville, Georgia.
Jason, this is a Southern Cove commercial.
Sorry, Dad. Okay, are you ready for a unique shopping experience? It's waiting for you at Southern Cove in downtown Cartersville. Items you want like jeans from Lee & Wrangler, fan shoes, Maui Jim sunglasses, Simply Southern, Dippin' Dots for the kids, and ices. Hey, ask for Jason.
Or ask for Buddy.
With Southern Cove, the 2022 Chamber Small Business of the Year on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at the Southern Cove.
Throughout history, he has filled the hearts of men with terror and the hearts of women with desire. Dracula, starring Frank Langella. with Laurence Olivier. Dracula from Universal, rated R, under 17, not admitted without parent.
Welcome back, everybody, to the 8th annual Halloween Spooktacular. A little spot there for Dracula, one of BK's contributions for the evening, a classic radio spot.
Hey, if you've never seen the 1975-79 version of Dracula with Frank Langella and Laurence Olivier playing Van Helsing and Donald Pleasance as Dr. Seward, it's a great version of Dracula. It's a very well done.
Notice the tie-in from Donald Pleasance in that Dracula to the song I'm playing here.
That's
it's
right.
The original Halloween.
Was that accident, or did you do that on purpose?
That was just a happy accident.
Okay.
I'm going to admit that. I'm not going to pretend I'm this smart.
Honest.
I am not the walking IMDb in this
I was
room.
going to say, I was going to be very impressed.
I'm the board op. He's IMDb. You're laugh track. We all know our roles.
What's funny about Donald Pleasance, he's such a ham. The directors always had a big problem with him always starting to eat in his scenes. Where there was food, he'd start eating something. Because his manager said, listen, if you eat, they'll have to leave the camera on you. It's an editing thing, and it'll screw them up. So just always be eating something. So when they cut back to you, and he learned, watch his movies.
I had that problem for many years in my life.
You did? Just not even
if there
in
was
front
food,
of the camera,
I'd eat
right?
it. Right. Yeah. No, I wasn't
You were
on
in a
camera.
movie?
A big one.
Yeah, just
He was in
one.
a big one.
I was in the Truman Show. I was on all the time.
He was in a Star Trek movie.
I just assumed there were
Always hold a
cameras.
camera on myself and eat everything in front of me.
Walk around with like your little selfie stick. Gotta keep eating. It's the rules.
Wow. Sean Connery eats in movies, too. He eats
Yeah,
quite a bit.
he does.
He has a lot of scenes where he's eating something. He says it humanizes him. I'm like, well, I guess he would know. He's an actor. He was an actor.
It's tough to do. I had to do a couple of scenes like that, and then you got to go take 2, take 3, take 4, and you're like, and you can't eat huge amounts because if you have to deliver a line, you can't deliver your line like this.
And
I did a commercial for a steakhouse, and they're like, okay, everybody grab a bite of steak, and I was so used to eating like regular sized bites, and I put it in, and then he goes, okay, on you, and I'm like. He goes, okay, you can't have that much food in your mouth. It looks goofy.
Right, you had half the steak.
I did. I was like, it's a free steak, man.
Well, the Arrested Development cast said that they were always worried about their weight, and they had a lot of scenes with eating, and of course you're doing take after take after take after take. So they'd either spit it out at the end of the take, or they would just act like they put something in their mouth.
Yeah, I'd rather act like, because I'm not going to spit out good food. Just like I when I go to a
You've been
wine
on
tasting,
set, it may not be that great.
I don't spit out the wine for the wine tasting. I'm like,
No,
that's free wine. It can taste like
drinking.
It can taste like Dracula's booty, and I'm going to still drink that wine.
Yeah. You keep on drinking and hope for a scene like Jaws.
So, why don't we jump to this? I think the first category, since it's early on, we'll save the movies that were supposed to scare us and the movies that were based on reality for the next couple of hours. We're opening it up. Let's talk about our memories. And actually, BK, this turned out to be a little bit more of a poignant one than I thought it was going to be for me. Because I wrote down 3 individual memories, and we can kind of go round table. But you introduced, and so, folks, I've got the Zoom up, and depending on our author, it's Halloween night. A lot of times people have multiple things going on. We'll hopefully have him. We're hoping to be able to chat with him about his writing of the book, Jaws 2, the making of a Hollywood sequel. But since he's not on the line yet, we got to keep the show rolling, and I said, let's go ahead and dive into our memories. And so we'll go around. We'll start off. In fact, let me go ahead and start this one, because my first memory, talking about school break, I had no idea. You know, as a kid, we would go trick-or-treating in kindergarten, but until I got to 1st and 2nd grade, I didn't realize that there would be a special day where we could dress up at school, and we went trick-or-treating classroom to classroom. So I'm curious, did you guys do that when you were growing up? Did you have that in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, where you actually could wear your mask, you could wear a costume, there were nobody checking you like for weapons, you just kind of went class to class and went trick-or-treating?
I don't think we ever went trick-or-treating, but we did have dress-up day, I think all throughout elementary and middle school. So, yeah.
Did you do like a costume parade? Is that?
Yeah, we did do the costume parade.
Okay.
So, so we always had a blast with that. And it was always cool to see the creativity of some people and the uncreativity of others.
Oh, I was the uncreativity. I was like, the Cookie Monster plastic mask with like the smock, and it's a picture of Cookie Monster, not
right?
like a blue fur. which you would think it should be. It's not. We were talking about that on your show this past Saturday. You know, I had R2-D2, I had C-3PO, where it was C-3PO's mask, and then it was a picture of R2-D2 and C-3PO on the front.
Oh, on the front. I remember that one.
I'm like, what does that even mean?
You're an R2-D2 C-3PO billboard.
I am.
Right.
I was a sandwich board for Star Wars.
Yes.
That's what they were.
See the movie. Meet these guys.
Buy the products.
By Kenner.
Yes.
So, but no, for me, I didn't really think a lot about it, but we didn't have it in middle school. We didn't have anything in high school. You know, there was just whether you go to a friend's house. But my elementary school was we would go to each classroom, and there was like a bucket where everybody could grab a candy from each teacher's room. And so we were on tour, and so it was a combination costume parade, but everybody could take, we had a little jack-o'-lantern, almost like the little bucket you have here, but it was the shape of a jack-o'-lantern, a little black handle, and we could just put a little piece of candy, and we got done. We had our first, that was like pre-trick-or-treat, because that wasn't trick-or-treating yet. That was at school.
That was just a warm-up.
That was the warm-up, right. So,
did y'all do that, VK?
If we did from class to class and did trick or treating in school, I don't remember it. It might have been when I was very young, but what I remember mostly is more like 4th, 5th, and maybe 6th grade. We had what was called a Halloween carnival in our gymnasium, and it was every year from like the 4th all the way up maybe to the 6th grade, if I remember right. And we would have the whole gym would just be full of people. There'd be a cakewalk over in the corner where you'd walk. The music would play. You'd walk around the chairs. It would stop. You sit down. And who were the last person left would win a cake off the shelf. A lot of people would bake cakes, and they're all Halloween themed. We had a corner where they had a drape pulled over where you couldn't see behind it, you know, just above your head, and you take these fishing poles, these little fake fishing poles with clothespins on the end, and you drop it behind the sheet in the background, and they had little waves painted on it, and you're fishing for stuff, and you could feel the tug, and someone was back there actually attaching a paper bag to it. You pull it back out, and you open it up. It had little Cracker Jack type toys and goodies and candy in it, so you caught something, which was great. Then they had the little haunted room. They called it a haunted house, but it was more like a haunted room where you walk in, and it had the blue, the blue
Did they hang
lights and stuff,
like plastic trash bags to create corridors?
No, they didn't even do that. That would have been nice if they
not that creative.
I think they had
the tape bags,
tape on the floor. Just stay within the 2 pieces of tape and walk through. And
it was actually the janitor's closet.
Yeah,
like a broom.
They had brooms with faces on them and stuff. It was great.
Smelled funny. Like, this is a haunted house.
Had that bag of stuff they used for throw up.
The green dust stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, that was great. I thought I was the only one that do that. I love the green dust.
What do they call it in Christmas Vacation? He's going to step up to the pixie dust or pixie powder.
Oh yeah, he is the on the Tilt-A-Whirl.
Yeah, the
pixie dust spreader on the Tilt-A-Whirl.
He's looking to get the upgrade to be the pixie dust spreader on the Tilt-A-Whirl.
Yes, I knew we'd get there.
All right, hey, you know what? Stuff. We have got, I think, our author signing in now via Zoom. It says his audio is connecting, so we'll give it a second for that audio to connect. So I shared my memory. We kind of just jumped on that. Let's go ahead. Now that we've got the audio connecting, we'll bring the computer volume up. And welcome to our 8th annual Halloween Spooktacular. We have got author Michael Smith. Michael, I'm Alan Sanders. You've got BK on the air and Walt Murray. Walt, all of us here in the studios of WBHF. Welcome on Halloween night.
Hi, welcome. Thank you. Thank you for the fine welcome. Sorry, I forgot I got a new computer. I had to reload Zoom.
No problem.
Sorry.
You know, we are in radio. It's like NASCAR. We know if there's an accident in turn 3, the show still keeps going on. So we just kept going, and we knew if you were going to. I had the screen up, and you showed up, and boom, we're here. And I know BK has talked to you before, and I know we are all fans of the Jaws franchise, more specifically the first 2. So I guess I'll open up, and then we'll go round and round. But the first question I have is, why choose to write a book about the making of Jaws 2?
Well, back in 2005, at the first Jaws Fest, I was with Jim Beller, known as Jimmy Jaws in the Jaws community. An amazing collection of memorabilia. I mean, like a warehouse full. And he was telling me an idea he had for a book on the making of Jaws, but told through the eyes of the Islanders. And we're actually getting carpet installed this week, so all my bookshelves are empty. I would show you a copy of it. So jump ahead to 2011, and he and Matt Taylor published a beautiful book. Came out in a special coffee table edition, as well as a regular trade paperback, but oversized, called Memories from Martha's Vineyard. So I go to the Vineyard for the release party, and I'm talking with, at the time, Tom Dunlop, who is Timmy in Jaws 2 and also an author. And I was with Lou Pisano, my late co-author, unfortunately passed away a few years ago. And we were talking to Matt and Jim, and I said, so are you guys going to do a Jaws 2 book? And they said no, this had taken them years to write, and it was really exhaustive. And if you ever see the book, you can see the work and the love that went into it. So Jim said, well, you write, because I have a website, and Lou has written stuff for Scream Magazine. Why don't you guys do it? So we said, okay, we would give it a try. And Tom Dunlop said, nobody wants a book on Jaws 2. And I said, Tom, you don't understand. I said, a lot of people, their introduction to the Jaws series was Jaws 2, because they were too young when Jaws came out, or their parents wouldn't let them see it. And he said, well, maybe an ebook. And I said, no, a real book. And then he said, well, if you guys convince me that you're serious, I'll give you all the help I can. So literally 4 years to the day, that was July 1st of 2011, on June 30th of 2015, we turned in our manuscript.
Well, Michael, it's BK here.
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Good, great, and I'm glad to have you on tonight. I've read that book twice since I got it from you, and I'm going to tell you, since I've got you here again, it's probably one of the best written books about a movie that I've ever seen. Now, I'll share what you said, because I saw Jaws in the theater. I was 11 years old, but I saw Jaws 2. It took them to 78 to come out with Jaws 2, and we read your book, you'll find out why it was a troubled production. It was Jaws. It's amazing Jaws got made, but it's also amazing reading your book how Jaws 2 got made. I mean, they started out with a director, then had to change directors, and had a lot of things against it. But I was older, and I remember Jaws 2 more when I was a kid than I'd remembered Jaws, because I was a little older age and saw it in 78. So I could see the definite need for a Jaws 2 book, and I'm glad that there is one. Tell everybody something about that one story in the book about how they did have a false start that people that might not know with the first director of Jaws 2.
Okay, so Jaws 2 was pretty much, due to the success of the film, they wanted a sequel. And they had contacted Howard Sackler, who was a playwright who kind of helped flesh out the book for the original Jaws. He didn't want a screenwriting credit, but Howard Sackler is responsible for the USS Indianapolis scene. Howard Sackler, while they were filming Jaws, Richard Nixon declassified the case of the USS Indianapolis. And so it was now not common knowledge, because a lot of people still don't understand the whole significance of that incident. So his first story treatment was the Indianapolis. That's what it was. Universal didn't like it. They wanted more of the same. So he wrote a script that was very dark and that had Brody descending into madness. And so they hired John Hancock. John Hancock was a very esteemed theater director who had done an Academy Award nominated short called Sticky My Fingers, Fleet My Feet. And so they hired John. He's ready to go. His wife, Dorothy Tristan, an actress and a screenwriter, looks at the script, gives him some ideas. He presents him to Zanuck Brown. They love him. So now Dorothy is a co-screenwriter on the film. So they start in early March or late March of 1977 on Martha's Vineyard. And for whatever reason, and John says a lot of it had to do with the shark still not working, still issues with the shark. Wow. He didn't test it fully, and they assured him everything was going to work. So eventually the studio was not happy with what was being shot. And so Zanuck Brown came to the island to visit the set. And the way John explained it to me was they landed on the island in the morning. That night, Dorothy and I were in Italy. And that's all he said. And then I interviewed Michael Chapman, the cinematographer. And what actually happened was they came, they had a meeting, and they shook hands, have a great day. Michael got in the car with John and Dorothy, and instead of going to the set, they drove them to the airport. While they were having the meeting, Universal cleaned out their house, packed up all their stuff, and took it to the airport.
Wow.
Well, Mike, you'll probably agree with me that Jaws 2 still, Roy Scheider didn't want to make it. Steven Spielberg certainly wasn't coming back to direct it, so the fact that it got made was amazing. It still has the same feel of the first movie. Most of the cast are back. John Williams does the music. It just has a different director, but it's still, to me, kind of. I can watch it right after Jaws and still be entertained, unlike the movies that followed after Jaws 2.
Right.
Oh, definitely. I think it's one of. Oh, excuse me. I don't have a cough button here. I'm sorry. It's one of John Williams' best scores, I think. It's so different than Jaws. It's more lyrical, and it uses a lot more instruments, not just the bum 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 bum. Scheider did not want to do it, and Universal kind of ended up having him over a barrel. Roy was the only actor. When they signed on for Jaws, to sign for a 3-picture deal. And the way he explained to me was the studio does that because, A, if it's a hit and they want to do something else, they already have you signed for a lesser amount than you would say, well, I'd love to do it, but you have to pay me this. And B, they kind of have him under contract. And his first film he did was Sorcerer, which was a Universal and Paramount co-production. And then he signed to play the role of Michael, Robert De Niro's eventual part in The Deer Hunter. And during pre-production, they switched the kind of story around where instead of Robert De Niro's character being the one that stays in Vietnam and has all the mental issues and everything, they changed it to Christopher Walken's character. And Scheider was upset, and he quit. Well, now Universal had him over a barrel because they wanted him to do Jaws 2. So they would offer him, like, the worst films, like, Bad News Bears in Space and stuff like that. And
that would be a bad one.
I would have saw that.
I would have seen
of course
that.
you would have seen it, yeah.
With Tony Curtis. It would have been great. And so what they did is they told him, if you do Jaws 2, we will count that as the 2 movies you owe us. And so that's how they got Roy on. And he told me, and it's in the book, that his next his best role is the next one he's going to do, and he prepares for it, and he does it like he's doing Hamlet. So the fact that he wasn't happy and that he did not want to have anything to do with it, and the fact that he gave such a great performance, I think, is a testament to the man and his talents.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, what is it about this movie and about Jaws that still haunts us? I remember as a kid just being terrified in both Jaws and Jaws 2. But what is it about these two movies that still just has us captured and has our imagination captured?
I think it's like all good horror movies. I think it's the fear of the unknown. I moved to Florida the week Jaws opened, and my grandfather lived in St. Pete. Went to the beach every day, and people would say, "Hey, buddy, watch out for Jaws," and I'd go, "I have no idea what you're talking about." I didn't see Jaws till September of '75, but now, even now, here, 40 plus years later, I'm wary of when I go in the water. I'm sure nothing will happen to me because I don't think God has that sense of irony where the headline would read, Jaws fan eaten by shark. But I think what makes it so popular still is like I said, all good horror films. It's what you can't see. It's you can see everything above the water, but you don't know what's going on underneath.
Well, I think if you were attacked by a shark, it would really, really help get the word out on your book.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, the family could live off of the irony of it all.
Yes.
Kind of like Jim Fix in his running book.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that well.
So I'm intrigued because you did get a chance to talk to a lot of the folks on the set, behind the scenes, Roy Scheider.
A lot of them.
I wanted to comment on the Roy Scheider thing because had I not heard from you about the whole contract, it's great to hear that the actor decided, well, if I'm going to be on film, I'm going to give it my all, because I would agree. I think he gave a stellar performance, and I love that Jaws 2, it follows a similar arc, but I love how it's just different enough that it doesn't feel like a carbon copy, which a lot of times sequels do.
Yes, it's a great standalone film. If it didn't have Jaws in the title, I think it would be regarded much better by some people who just dismiss it as a sequel. But yeah, like I said, Roy threw his heart into it, and I want to say deep inside, he didn't want to see anybody else play that role.
Let me ask you this, because one of the things that I noticed about Jaws 2, and maybe it's just the way television worked when I was growing up in the 70s and then into the 80s when you would see these films that were transitioned to TV, there were several scenes that I was used to seeing because we recorded the movie on the movie of the week on your VCR, and so I would watch Jaws 2 all the time. And then I finally had a chance to see like the DVD cleaned up audio 5.1 surround, and I'm like, where's the helicopter under the water? There were scenes missing. And so do you cover the different versions of Jaws 2 in the book?
We talk about the differences in the two versions. Back then, they used to shoot a lot of stuff that they didn't use. Unfortunately, that's all the helicopter underwater scene and some quick bits where he's writing the ticket to Joe Moskalo. That's all the deleted footage that remained from Jaws 2, because I went through the vaults at Universal when we first started the book, because I was hoping, because I was able to talk to all of the actors that had been cast by John Hancock and then fired, except for Sarah Holcomb. And, so-and-so would say, like Lenora May told me, I had this great dramatic scene with Mike Brody, and after I got fired, but I had an audition, and Universal sent the film over, and we got to see it. But I think, of course, back then they didn't do, there was no home video back then. There was no thought of, wow, we can save this for the DVD. They always shoot just a little bit for television, so in case they have to lengthen out a film, they got to cut out something, but they got to add something to fit into a 3-hour window. And the same thing with when Jaws premiered on ABC in November of '79. I didn't have a VCR yet, but I have my little cassette recorder, and you can hear me, I'm watching the movie, listening to it, and then the very first scene, instead of a little boy coming in and saying, Mom, I got hit by a vampire, it's Roy Scheider saying, Ellen, you burnt another pot. And you can hear me on the cassette going, what the hell is this? Because it was an extra scene. So yeah, it's nice to see that, to see, okay, they did this, they did that.
Well, I don't know about these guys in the room, but it sent a chill up my back when you said Mike got to go through the vaults at Universal.
Yeah, that got my attention.
How cool was that to do? Michael, I want to say a quick thank you to you. The newer edition, the second edition of the book that came out, you put some quotes on it for some folks, and you asked me for a review quote on your book, and you actually quoted me on the back with some other people, and I appreciate that very much. And you're the only book that I'm quoted on, and I love that.
Well,
thanks.
I appreciate your quote. I appreciate that you love the book so much.
And I promise I'll let these guys in the studio read it. It's a great, great book. I know they'll eat it up. They'll love it.
No
Good.
pun intended.
Like
That
right.
bum.
Right.
We've got about 5 minutes. We're here with Michael Smith. We're talking about the movie Jaws 2, and he wrote a book, Jaws 2, The Making of a Hollywood Sequel, which, by the way, let's do it now before we forget and we run out of time. People listening, they're like, you know what? I'd love to get this. I'd love to maybe give it as a gift. I'd love to have it as a coffee table book. I just want to know more. How do they find it?
Okay, you can go to Amazon and you can buy it. It's the expanded version. If you want a full-colored, signed and numbered expanded version, you can contact me. My email address is osfan, Mike, OsFanMike@AOL.com.
Okay, excellent. And we've got that, and we're going to have our. By the way, this even though we're live, because we live in this age of making sure that everything goes back out in a digital downloadable platform for on demand. We're going to both make sure our individual podcasts. BK's got the Escape Pod podcast. We've got the Wilder Ride. We're going to make sure that this show gets put back out there, so that way, whenever somebody stumbles across it, hopefully they'll reach out to you and get that book.
Well, I do appreciate it.
Walt, I know we're almost out of time, but we got a few more minutes. You wanted to make sure we had a few more seconds with the author here.
Yeah, Mike, I'm always fascinated by sequels, and some of them, sometimes on occasion, make the series better. What happened between Jaws 2 and Jaws 3 that was such a departure from the two great films into what the rest of the series became?
The 80s?
The 80s, basically. The 80s and wanting to make money. John Hancock has told me numerous times, if he knew that Steven Spielberg was going to become Steven Spielberg, he never would have taken on Jaws 2. And I think as the 80s progressed, and then Jaws 3 with the 3D, still the highest grossing 3D film of the 20th century. And then, of course, Jaws: The Revenge. I think it was just all for money. Carl Gottlieb once said, the last sequel is always the one that doesn't make any money.
And Mike, didn't the director of Jaws 3, was it Joe Alves?
Joe Alves, yes.
Yes.
He was the production designer on Jaws and Jaws 2. He's the one who designed the shark.
I had also read
Joe directed that
Jaws 3 at one point was going to be a comedy called Jaws 3 People Zero, and they abandoned that idea too, which might have been even worse than the 3D film. So
actually, it's very funny. It was National Lampoon. I have a copy of the script. John Hughes wrote the script, and it's very, very funny.
I take it back. Maybe it'd have been better then. I don't know.
Based on what I saw in the theater.
But Universal thought that Jaws was a cash cow, and they didn't want to kind of diminish it, in their words, by
heard it.
Well,
making
didn't
it funny.
Spielberg send a letter to the director of 3 saying, "Don't do this"?
Well, he was very fond of Joe. Joe worked with him on, obviously, Jaws, on Close Encounters. He was going to do 1941 when he was offered an associate producer position as well on Jaws 2. And, he could have worked with Spielberg forever, because Spielberg has the same crew, has the same editor, he has the same cinematographer. But yeah, Spielberg was like, But when you're somebody wanting to make a mark as their director in Hollywood, you take what's offered to you.
Well, we're here, folks. If you're just now tuning in, we've got author Michael Smith with us. BK, you brought Michael to the show, so I'll let you give the fond farewell as we are at the top of the hour.
Well, Michael, I'm glad you came on board tonight. It is our Halloween show, and we consider Jaws could be a Halloween. Jaws, to me, it's hard to classify. It's a horror film, it's a drama, is it a thriller? Yes. Is it a part adventure
everything.
film? Yes, it really is. Because
a little bit of everything.
TV Guide used to put this genre of film out beside the word in the description. It's hard to put Jaws in a thing there. Appreciate you coming on board. I'm a big Jaws 2 fan. I had the Jaws 2 bubblegum trading cards as a kid. Always tried to watch it on television. Alan said earlier he remembers the scenes that weren't in it, that he remembers they did that to Superman 2 and Star Trek and a lot of movies, extra scenes in the movies when they would do that. But always a pleasure. Always stay in contact. Love to have you maybe on another Halloween night or on my show during the day on a Saturday. We'll talk about it, and I appreciate having you on board tonight, Michael.
Happy to do it. Thanks for having me. You guys have a good night.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Happy
Michael.
Halloween to you. Thanks for joining us.
Same to y'all.
All right. We're coming up to the top of the hour, so we are going to take a quick break for Fox News. We'll get you caught up on a little bit of news, gives us a chance to stretch our legs. And then we've got hour 2 of a 3-hour Spooktacular brought to you by our good friends over at Southern Cove, AM 1450, FM 100.3, WBHF Cartersville.
The legend continues.
That's a shark.
But no one sees it.
And I know what a shark looks like because I've seen one up close.
The legend continues, but no one believes it.
And you better do something about this one.
The legend continues.
Because I don't intend to go through that hell again.
The all-new Jaws 2. See it before you go back in the water.
And welcome back, everyone, to the 8th Annual Halloween Spooktacular here on AM 1450, FM 100.3, WBHF. Also online, if you're listening on the TuneIn Radio app, the Radio Garden app, from the radio, from your smart speaker. And who knows, maybe you're listening right now on the podcast. You're in somewhere in our future right now. We don't know who you are, but thank you for listening.
Having visions of a husky dog being followed by some men in the snow. I wonder why is that?
I wanted to play this on purpose. This is the opening theme. Ennio Morricone's The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing, but Ennio Morricone doing this. He didn't use all the music from Morricone.
No, he did a lot of his own music like he does in his movies, but there's a little bit of Ennio's stuff through there. He was a great composer, too. He composed the music for all the spaghetti westerns, and he did The Untouchables for Brian De Palma. So he's a classic composer, too.
One of the things I enjoyed, it wasn't a great movie, but I enjoyed the attempt, was Quentin Tarantino's Hateful Eight, where he went back and he said, I want to retell The Thing, but I want it in a completely different kind of world, a different kind of setting, where you don't know who's up to what, who's going to get whacked next. And he went back and he used almost everything that John Carpenter didn't use from Morricone. He grabbed that for the soundtrack for The Hateful Eight. So, and it also has Kurt Russell.
It's hard to believe that The Thing was made from a short story called Who Goes There? I mean, it was a short story, and they made an entire motion picture out of it in the 50s and up into the in the 80s, too. So, yeah.
The reason I brought this up more than anything, we had a chance. My daughter and her fiance, who will be getting married October 21 of 2023. And they picked that.
Alan approved fiance.
They picked that date. Walt will appreciate this. This will be horrifying for BK, so it qualifies for Halloween. It's the bye week before the Florida-Georgia game.
I was going to say, it's probably football related.
It is college football related. So
you always appreciate
that. They picked the weekend where they go, no one's going to have an excuse to be on their phones checking scores. Of course, she'd be like, I'd be up in the front of the like the preacher. Can we get going? I mean, because we're like heading into like opening. Can we like hurry up?
Well, I could just give you an earpiece and I could feed you the score.
So no, they honestly picked that, but they just got done putting a whole list of all of these horror movies together. And in true, this is like my daughter, this is Susan's daughter, like she's got this ability to quantify and create these spreadsheets. They're going through and doing a bracketology of movies that they either haven't seen or haven't seen in a long time that are all, quote, horror or Halloween related. And they watched John Carpenter's The Thing. Lexi had seen it, but her fiance, Austin, had never seen it. He said, I was blown away. He goes, I was just assuming it's an 80s movie. It's probably going to be a little cheesy. It's probably going to have a bad soundtrack. It's probably going to look a little goofy. He said, I had no idea what I was in store for.
No, that's one of those movies they could release today. And
it holds up so well. There's only a handful, and even though it's a practical effect, I don't mind that they start looking a little rubbery because they're transforming into something else anyway.
Right.
And I will tell you, my favorite moment in the movie The Thing, and we're going to get into some other stuff here as well, that took me and like blew me away and obviously becomes a subplot or plot point for Kurt Russell, when the head comes off the body and sprouts legs and starts crawling out like a spider. I'm like, first of all, who thought of that? How did they do that? And then I want to repeat what the guy says in the movie, but I can't because
if it was just a podcast,
we could.
Yeah.
But I was like I had never seen it. I am still to this day. That's one of those moments that just I cannot get out of my head.
You know, the biggest jump scare for me in The Thing was when they were doing the blood test, and he hits the last one.
Oh,
and it jumps out of the
when he's convinced it's going to be the next guy. Goes, yeah,
because
only you were alone with that dog, and all of a sudden,
yeah, that gets me. It's like the head and Ben Gardner's head in Jaws when it pops out. I know it's coming, and it gets me every time.
Always some good really stuff. Cool. When we had to, we started our topic, and then we had to cut away to when our author did join in, and he did explain that he forgot he had to install Zoom. But it was great having Michael Smith join us last hour. If you missed it, folks, you're definitely going to want to listen to the podcast, either at the Wilder Ride podcast or the BK on the Air Escape Pod podcast, because we're going to have the show in a few days or maybe a week, just depending on how much time we have to edit. But that is a really cool interview with the writer of the Jaws 2, the making of a Hollywood sequel. We were in the middle of, though, before trying to buy a little time, talking about our favorite childhood memories or some of our early schoolhouse memories. I talked about one of them being the costume parade and trick or treating class to class. BK, you talked about the carnival. Walt, I think you said you did a parade.
Yeah, we did a parade.
So I'll go to you, Walt, next. Then, is there a specific thing that, because I kind of introduced that, was there something from your childhood that you are fondly remembering of Halloween when you were a kid?
Well, I may have told this story before. Like we were saying earlier, we kind of get to where we're repeating some of these. But we had been at one of my grandparents' houses. We were living in Ohio at the time, and we were coming back on Halloween. And my parents were like, no, it's Thursday night. We'll trick-or-treat on Saturday. That's when everybody will be trick-or-treating. So we pulled in our neighborhood, and the streets are packed with kids. And we're like, what's going on? So we went flying over to the local. It was kind of like the local Dollar Tree or whatever. It's called Big Bear. Ran in, got whatever costumes they had left, and flew back to the neighborhood and got out and trick-or-treated. But I just remember that night, like the frantic feeling of, and the most horrifying Halloween I'd ever had. Like I might miss Halloween. And so that has always, and I was probably like 4,
So you got the last costumes that were just there that when they sold all the other ones.
Yeah, but if you're 4, you probably didn't care.
I didn't care.
You had you were going like as a broccoli stalk or something?
Yeah. Well, when a kid really needs to go to the bathroom and he's just jumping up and down and he's like, go, 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 go. I think I was like that in the aisles. It didn't matter. I could have gone as a ballerina or a football player. I didn't care. I'll have to ask my dad if he remembers what costumes we ended up with. That would have been a perfect time just to cut a hole in a sheet and throw it over me and go, you're a ghost. Go.
Go.
So, but yeah, that was one of my earliest memories. But I also remember one of our neighbors handing out candy apples.
Oh,
and that just being a disaster, trying to chew through that thing and it hardened, and it was Ohio, it was cold, and like feeling like your teeth are going to break out.
Did you ever go trick or treating and it started flurrying?
Oh yeah,
there's been plenty of times I remember that. Or it's so cold, you bought the costume and it fit you, but now you've got your winter coat on, and it's like, oh
my gosh, yeah.
Now that's the time I was happy I was growing up in Alabama.
Yeah, I was going to say. Then when we moved here and it's like 80, you're like, this is not Halloween.
By the way, it's National Caramel Apple Day today.
Is it really?
Along with Halloween and National Magic Day.
I might like caramel apples more now than I did then.
Oh, yeah. The Kraft Rapples. The Kraft that made Rapples.
Yeah, we were just talking about this.
That was the thing, man. That was coveted. I loved that.
And you could never make them work right.
No, but they tasted all right. They still tasted good.
But how many did you try to wrap around it? There's supposed to be one per apple.
Mom had to stop me.
Yeah, we're like 1 box per apple.
She's
okay.
Like, you have to just.
You
have a sister.
Can I just eat the caramel off the sheet?
Yeah, exactly. You have like an inch of fake caramel.
Drink it like a drink.
Yeah, just skip the whole apple thing.
Oh yeah, and we were always waiting. We knew Halloween was coming up, so we always checked the TV guide to make sure we knew what movies were coming on, like whatever specials each network was doing, like the Paul Lynde Halloween special.
Mm-hmm.
You had
the Paul Lynde.
Oh yeah, back in
I remember that.
Mid-70s. That was the first TV appearance.
Trick or treat, boys and girls.
That's exactly what it was, and I think it was the first appearance of Kiss on television was on his show.
Really,
the group Kiss. I think, if I'm not mistaken. You had TV movies that were made just specifically for television that were horror films. The miniseries Salem's Lot by Stephen King, which came out. Tobe Hooper directed the miniseries. It was, I think, it premiered on or near somewhere around Halloween. I think, but it's a great movie to watch during Halloween.
And wasn't that the one on the commercial that the old lady was kicking down the tombstone of somebody or something?
I don't know. That Salem's Lot, or it might have been. I haven't seen it in a long time. But that scene rings a bell. It sounds familiar.
I just remember thinking, that is going to be a weird movie.
Watching all those movies. Good stuff, though. I mean, a lot of memories growing up Halloween.
All right. Well, BK, since we're on the memories of our topics that we're going to have over the next couple of hours still remaining, what about you? We kind of had hit tangential things, but specifically for you when you look back as a child, like something that just stands out.
Well, going to that Halloween carnival and sticking my hand in a bowl of grapes, being told it's eyeballs, stuff like that. And then as a young kid, I kind of knew that it wasn't, but part of me is like, could it be eyeballs? Because it certainly feels like it. Things like that. I think my earliest costume I ever had was like you guys have had. It came in the box, a Ben Cooper Company manufactured costume, meaning the rubber band mask that you couldn't breathe through. You pass out if you didn't cut a bigger hole in it, couldn't see. I mean, how great is that? Let's give these kids a costume where they can't see where they're supposed to be able to see for safety.
Right.
That sounds great. Casper the Ghost, I think, was the first. Now, if I'd had one when I was a kid, earlier than that, as a small tyke, my mom would know, but I don't remember anything before that. But the earliest memory I have is a Casper the Ghost, the one that, and you can still find them as collector's items in boxes. But I was Casper, and it did have had Casper on the poncho, the plastic poncho. And what a heartbreaking thing for a kid is when you hear the snap of that rubber band and your rubber band broke on your mask. What are you going to do then? You have to hold it on your face, which is stupid.
Pulls out from the little cheap staple on the side, and you're trying to figure out, I can't get it to go back.
It's
or if you try
break.
to fish it in, it comes right back out because it's loose already.
It's going to break.
Because when you're 7, you don't think tie a knot, and that'll help.
Right.
Yeah. So
you're not really all that intelligent.
All of that stuff. And we trick-or-treated in our neighborhoods where we live, but we actually would go to our grandparents' neighborhood, which was it was more rural, but it was more community-oriented, and a lot of people, were sticking together as community, and they knew that we were venturing out like hungry wolves every Halloween night to grab those sweets and that candy to get. And we got some great candy and a great area to trick-or-treat in, high atop Lookout Mountain in northeast Alabama near Fort Payne, Alabama. And that's where we did the bulk of our Halloween. We do it in our neighborhood. And she goes, okay, hop in the car. We're going up to grandparents' house. We do it up there, too. So we managed to get quite the big bag of candy booty. I felt like a very lucky pirate. Oh, I got the candy booty here. I'm going to take it back and sort through it and give my sister what I hate. Because I'm not going to keep the bad stuff. So that's just some great memories growing up.
Well, I think when I was a kid, talking about either going, to a more rural area like my grandparents' house or doing it in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
That was the first time I understood population density. Because it was like the most houses in the slowest amount of time. Let's hit it and go.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, when did and did you all do this when you were younger? Because I always thought it was cheating. Like, I just thought you're supposed to go to the subdivision where you live. And when I moved down here, we started realizing that as time has progressed, more and more people go, wait a minute, we've got subdivisions with 800 homes versus the subdivision I live in, which has 100. We're going to pack the kids in the car and drive over to that other subdivision.
Yeah.
When did that start happening?
I don't know, but when I was a kid, it was, our neighborhood or a relative's neighborhood, basically.
Now, I don't mind, like, if we would do ours, and if we had time, we'd run to, like, maybe adjoining neighborhoods.
Sure,
but,
yeah.
like, the rule, I thought it was just maybe it wasn't a rule. The unwritten rule, you just trick or treat where you live.
Well, when I had kids that were trick or treating age, that's when I learned about that, because they were like, "Hey, Dad, all my friends are going to this neighborhood and they're shutting down the street and they're doing this," and I was like, "Nah, that's kind of sounds like a too good to be true story floating around school."
Yeah, and when I had kids, I didn't have kids. Never mind.
Yeah, never mind. I do want to hit one more memory I put together, and actually I split it in two. And I think maybe, depending on you guys, but BK, you and I share an unfortunate similarity with our dads having passed away. Looking back, I remember the very first time my dad took me and my brother trick-or-treating. It was my mom staying home to hand out candy and my dad's responsibility to take us. And he was very specific. We're not cutting through yards. You're going to say trick or treat, and then you're going to say thank you. And if we didn't, he would reprimand us. He'd be like, but I learned the trick or treat etiquette, as I thought, from my dad. Yeah. And I'll always cherish that, him taking us. And he had his little, remember the Army flashlights that had the 90-degree bend?
Oh, yeah,
the green
those
ones?
were awesome.
He had his Army flashlight with the red screw-on in there, so that way.
We used to have that, too.
And I never thought or appreciated it until BK said, let's just do this exercise of looking back. And I was like, well, what really sticks in my head? And I started realizing the very first time we went trick-or-treating. I don't know if I did when I was younger than that, but I remember the time we went where my brother was just old enough to walk. And I was like mad because I was faster, but we had to wait because my brother was 2 years younger. But just being with my dad. And and I remember taking on that role when my kids were old enough to like, okay, we're going to go trick-or-treating now. Yeah. We're going to go I was like, oh, my God. I'm doing with my kids what my dad did with me. I have no idea what he thought. He didn't share that with me. And I hate that he never did. So one of the lessons I've learned, and I'm not knocking my dad. He was military. He was raised in a different time, different generation. You weren't touchy-feely. You didn't share as much. But I made a point of telling my kids all the time, like, I really enjoyed taking you trick-or-treating, or I really enjoyed seeing you in this, or I really love coming to your practices, so they understand that it's not just a silent appreciation. I only found out, and this is sad, I found out after my dad's passing how proud he was of all of us, but he always told everybody else. He didn't tell me. Didn't tell my brothers. He always told us what we weren't doing right. But he told everybody how proud he was. And so looking back, I see that. I didn't know it. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't notice it. But it's a definite memory that I will always cherish, that first time going trick-or-treating. That's a great memory. Now, I do remember a couple of times with Dad, because my mom and Dad split up when I was young. So the bulk of my memory is Mom just driving us around in the car. And I was old enough at that point because I had a sister that's 3 years younger than me, and I was the person walking with her up to the house. It was my responsibility to do that. Mom sat in the car, but that's just the way it was set up. But I do remember early just going out in the car with Mom. Now, my dad was maybe just the opposite. My dad was more of he was fun, but he was a touchy-feely dad to me. I was still. This is going to sound weird, but a lot of people do this. You kiss your mom, you hug your mom, and up till my dad passed away, I was the kind of guy that had always grown up and still would kiss my dad and hug my dad. It was just that's the way it was. It was just a sign of affection, But you kiss your dad, and he's like here, never here, right?
Points
on
the cheek,
only on the cheek.
Not that I was going to do that anyway, but that's just the way it was with my dad. My dad was that kind of a guy, and he was kind of like he reminded me of Robin Hood, because he would wind up going, let's get some extra candy for some of the kids that maybe don't have a trick or treat, and let's take it to them down there. I'm like, okay, Dad, I'll go with you. So can I wear my mask? And
you probably didn't at the time think of it as the kind of lessons to be when you got older, but then all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, that's why I want to take care of people. I want to be
at all.
Yeah.
But I do.
Dads are good things sometimes.
They are. I mean, usually, and you start thinking more about them when they're gone, and that's just the way it is.
Right.
I mean, about anybody, even if a friend passes away, you're like, well, I remember that guy, and he did this, and sometimes. And Walt, you said you were going to tell us about the different stages of death because you took your cemetery tour. I think it was some of it that we go through is like, when someone passes away that you knew, like a relative or your mom and dad. I don't want to get too deep into this Halloween evening, but you start the bad things they do starts to fade. You're like, I don't really remember the bad. Rude thing,
or they become the fun stories, like when remember that time he went bananas and started beating us, and my brother tried to hop out of the way, and he got hit like 17 more times because he goes, I didn't get it in good lick. You told you if you don't sit still, you're not going to get a good lick. You got to get hit.
We look back on it fondly now, but back then it wasn't so.
It wasn't so fun at the time.
Yeah, the time my dad handcuffed me to the couch because I was being a jerk. Yeah,
now
I can guarantee you, even when I thought I didn't deserve it at that time. I was well aware of the times that I should have probably been beaten and got away with it.
Definitely.
So it kind of all evens out.
For sure.
It does. Yeah, and I still have my dad around, and I really do appreciate having him. And but losing my mom a couple of years ago, one of the things over the last 2 years that I've realized is that I've lost a bunch of stories, and I've lost a bunch of clarification where it's like, wait, didn't this happen this way or whatever, and you can't make that phone call and say, hey, Mom, when we lit the yard on fire, did you come from the right side of the house or the left side?
Remember when Dad said, why are all these fire trucks pulling out of the neighborhood?
Did he throw the shovel or the pitchfork? I can't remember.
Who got hit first? My brother and I are arguing.
I remember that. You remember that part I do remember.
I know it's the Halloween show, but remind me to tell you guys a story about my dad when I was an infant and what he did to mortify his mother, my grandmother. It was involving me, and it was a terrible joke, but it was crazy, and I'll tell you about it sometime.
Okay.
I don't think it's appropriate for our Halloween.
Yeah, we'll do it.
But it's hilariously funny though, and gross.
It's gross.
It's so well. Maybe it would give you good Halloween.
Awesome.
It's very gross, but it's funny. I'll tell it to you sometime. It's kind of fun. Maybe on my show.
Yeah, we'll look forward to that.
Or maybe on Saturday morning we'll tell the story.
Well, we have a lot of content and a lot of stuff to still get to. We've got a couple of lists coming your way next after the bottom of the hour break. I think what we'll jump to. I want to jump to. Well, wait, you know what? Let's take a vote. Do we want to jump to the movies that were based on something that's real? We're not talking about ghosts, I guess, although some people may still believe in ghosts. We're not talking about monsters or Godzilla or giant apes, but things that might be a little more realistic or based in truth, or movies that were supposed to scare us, and we looked at it and go, Yeah, okay.
I think the movies that aren't the more realistic, scary movies, I think we should save that for later. What do you
Save
think?
that for last?
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
And I want to remind everybody, we've got a bucket of candy. We have a huge bucket of candy here. All you have to do is come down to the station, WBHF, if you live locally. It's 7 North Wall Street, right in downtown Cartersville. Cross the railroad tracks, or don't cross them if you're coming from the other side. We're sandwiched in between the Grand Theater and Ross's Diner here. Come to the window. We can see you. We're right here in the studio live until midnight. Come up with a sign, a little piece of paper, and just write out the word Spooktacular and just shake it and wave at us and do something in the window. And don't do anything in the window, but do something. And,
hey, this isn't Friday Night Football, folks.
I have to elaborate.
I've seen it.
And I will come out and
been here.
Congratulate you and give you this entire bucket of candy, which is some good stuff. Alan looked at it. There's some good stuff in
Honestly,
there.
you should probably take a picture during our break and put it on on either WBHF and or your what's your Instagram or Facebook? How do people find you?
I think I'll do that. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. BK on the air. I think I will do that.
Well, and if you're planning to come, you better hurry up because I'm eyeing these peanut M&Ms.
I'm looking at.
I need them out of here.
I'm looking at some of those Starbursts right now, and I just got to make sure I don't let my sugar level get too high and then crash before midnight.
So what we're saying is, you get half a bucket of candy if you come on down here. And
look, you get like 12 good pieces of candy if you hurry up.
Speaking of my dad, he did that once. He found a wallet with $2,000, and he found out who it was, and he's like, "I found your wallet with $2,000. You can either have a 1,000 of it back or none of it. Which one do you want back?"
Your choice.
He was just kidding, but I thought that was funny. It's like, you're going to give it all
Pick
back.
one.
Yeah, come on.
We're going to go ahead and take our break. When we come back, we'll go ahead and then dive into the movies that we were assured are supposed to be scary. And we looked at it, and we might have even laughed out loud. We didn't think they were scary at all. We'll find out. We're going to go through our top 5, and I have an honorable mention. Maybe these guys do as well. We'll be right back with more of our Halloween Spooktacular, brought to you by our good friends over at Southern Cove.
Mother! Oh, God! Mother! Blood!
The lights go out. The phone goes dead. The stairs creak.
Who's there?
The doorknob turns. And you're all alone in the dark. Universal Pictures presents Halloween 2. From the people who brought you Halloween, more of the night he came home. Halloween 2. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Halloween Spooktacular. Going to a quick short story here from my buddy Chris. It's been a long time since I've been home. After what happened there, I had to get away. This woman had been talking the entire flight. Julie was not interested in any of it, especially the long-winded advice on embracing life while you still can. Make your bucket list, she said. Call old friends, she added. Revisit the homes of your youth. The woman suddenly leaned across Julie to look out the window. You see that large farm down there? Yes, I see it. That's where I died. When Julie turned back to look at her, she found she was sitting all alone. Hey, a little horror short, just for the fun of it.
Very nice.
Yep.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. We are in the midst of our Halloween Spooktacular, brought to you by Southern Cove. Alan Sanders, BK on the air, Walt Murray, or Walt into Darkness, as we are here tonight on Halloween night. It is such a pleasure to be with you all, and one of our assignments was to look at movies or TV shows, things that we were told were going to be good and scary, and we found it to be the exact opposite. BK, we'll start with you. We'll do our 5 and count down to 1.
You know, I don't even know if I'm going to do them in order. I have a few here. And
You didn't put them in order?
No, I didn't put these in order because none of them scared me. So.
I did.
Let's start with the attempt And I can't remember the director's name. I want to say it's Mike Nichols, but I'm not sure. But it's a werewolf movie with Jack Nicholson playing a werewolf, and it was called Wolf. With him, and I think Michelle Pfeiffer is in it with him.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mike Nichols directed that. I can't look it up right now, but I was excited that a new werewolf story about a person turning into a werewolf movie, other than just werewolves. And I was looking forward to it when it came out. And when I finally did see it, is it Mike Nichols?
Mm-hmm.
When I finally saw it, and I saw it on home video, I didn't see it in the theater. It's probably one of the most uninteresting, boring, dialed back, uninteresting werewolf movie I think I've ever seen. If you, I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but I would say don't waste your time on it because you're not going to get the least bit scared. The most clever part of the film that I saw was he's in the office where he works, Jack Nicholson's character, and another guy comes in there to use the urinal beside him, and while our character Jack Nicholson is doing his business, he turns to the side and does a little bit of his business on the other guy,
like a dog marking his territory.
I'm like, okay, well that was clever, that was cool, but nothing else about the movie is clever. I apologize to you out there if you liked the movie, but I did not like it.
Was it like a bank of urinals or just two urinals?
I don't remember.
Because if it's a bank of urinals and somebody comes standing next to you, that's totally legit.
Even,
So
what are you doing? There's like 12 over there. Walt, we'll go to you.
Scary.
You're number 5. A movie or TV show or TV movie that was supposed to be scary, and you went,
So I've mentioned this burning pile of garbage before. And I don't even know if it quite fits, but I'm going to mention it again because it's terrible.
Burning pile of garbage would be more scary?
Oh, much more scary. And more entertaining, frankly.
Oh, wow.
But the movie Fire in the Sky. I don't know if y'all remember this.
Wasn't that about the alien abduction movie, and they don't show anything until like the last 5 minutes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it. It's terrible.
I'm so embarrassed.
It doesn't scare you. It makes you angry because you've spent money or time or both on it, and it's awful.
It's one of those things where you say that's an hour and a half or 2 hours I'm never getting back.
Well, not only that.
You tried the movie with James Garner, right, playing the law officer, and the guy from was not Ray Liotta, but the other guy, Robert Patrick from T2, Terminator 2. He's in it as one of the guys.
Probably. I've tried to blot this thing out of my mind so much.
I'm so embarrassed because I liked it.
And I just remember that the guy who either wrote it or was supposedly the guy who got abducted played the judge in the movie. And the thing I think that makes me most angry about this is not only did I spend the time and money seeing this thing, but I've probably spent hours since then complaining about it to try to
it's taken up time in your life.
Flush it out of my brain. So Fire in the Sky. It should have been number 1, but it's number 5.
I'm telling you, they bring you up their ship and they put rainbows up your butt.
I'm embarrassed.
Rainbows? Yeah, rainbows. What are you talking about? Oh, rainbows. For me, my number 5 was one I just watched 2 episodes of. My wife and I, who have seen a lot of horror movies, and my wife is famous for saying, I have not found anything anymore as an adult that scares me. Nothing that gives me the creepy crawlies, nothing that raises the hair on the back of my neck. She doesn't count jump scares. She goes, obviously you can do the cheap jump scares. So we did a thing just 2 nights ago. We did a search. What horror series, like what's your best horror series? And they said, Guillermo del Toro's Cabinets of Curiosity. You're like, oh, Guillermo del Toro. Yeah, he's a pretty good director. We've seen I like his visual. So we watched the first episode. It's an anthology series. It's supposed to be like 7 episodes, different directors, but all sort of linked together loosely. I'm thinking like Creepshow or some of these other movies. Watched the first episode and ended, and we're like, that's it? That's the story? Okay, well, let's watch the second one, maybe. I got done with the second one and said, we're not going to waste any more of our time on this. The sad part is it's getting a 90 on Rotten Tomatoes. I think sometimes a director just gets known and they just go, must be good, it's Guillermo del Toro.
Right.
It was not horrifying. It wasn't scary. It wasn't suspenseful. It was nothing. Now, it made us angry that we wasted our time watching it. So that made my number 5 because we tried to watch something brand new, thought it would be good, and everybody online was like, oh, it's so good, it's so good. No, don't waste your time. Sorry. Why, did you like it? You're looking at me.
No,
like,
I've never even heard of it.
Okay.
I'm just thinking of another one that grinds my gears. So
Yeah, what's cool? He's going to hate it, but I thought that watching Andor, same way. So yeah.
Well,
oh, just got cold in here.
It got really cold.
Well, look at the frost on the window.
It's okay. Dementors are here. Leave it to BK to suck the joy out of our experience.
My wand.
All right, number 4. Well, number 4 movie that you watched that you were supposed to be scared about, and you went, whatever.
None of these are scary. My next one is I got 2 remakes on the list. First remake, The Wicker Man with Nicolas Cage. The Wicker Man, the original one came out in 1973, and it starred Edward Woodward, the guy who played the Equalizer. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Great Irish actor. The Wicker Man from 1973 is considered and a lot of people call it it's the Citizen Kane of horror films, and it is actually one of the best ones I've ever seen. And there's not one dismemberment or blood or slash scene in the whole thing. It's all in psychological, and it all has to do with being helpless and somewhere you can't get out of. This remake was horrible. It's almost like they sit around a round table and go, let's take everything that made the original great and just throw it all out the window and just do our own thing and make it over the top, and people will love this. Well, they didn't love it. I think the movie, I think it went so much in the negative that they have to, that I think some of the copies of it disappeared. It just faded out because they lost so much money off of it. So, yeah, The Wicker Man, the remake of The Wicker Man.
Not the original.
No, not the original. It was one of those classic examples of a horrible remake, and it really was.
I remember when it came out, a couple of my friends were like, this is going to be great. And they were like, this is terrible.
No, they were talking.
Some movies are so good, they just should not be remade.
That's true. Some of them are. And I'm beginning to think more and more as I get older, Jaws is one of them.
Oh.
Because when I hear little tittering of like maybe Jaws, they're talking about remaking Jaws, I'm like, and nothing happens. I'm like, whew, that's great.
No.
That was close.
Well, you're number 4.
Okay, so this is a Netflix series that's actually pretty recent. The Dahmer series that just came out on Netflix, and it's supposed to be like kind of a, documentary, well, not really documentary, but like historical reenactment, I guess.
They call it like a docudrama.
Docudrama, thank you. And I knew there was a term for it. It is so boring. And also, it is not accurate. It is not, kind of historically accurate to the legitimate story. And I think I got 2 episodes in, or maybe into the 3rd episode, and we were like, forget it, we're done.
My wife felt the exact same way. She said, I want to like it.
I want to like it.
It's so slow. It's just, you're just sitting there going, okay, do something.
Right.
Like what? And then she goes, I'm so bored, I'm not even going to bother watching it.
And it's not building tension. It's just dull. It was just a dull edge. So it was not worth watching.
Andor. Yeah, same thing. I'm having flashbacks.
You got an axe to grind with Endor.
Yeah, not Endor.
Andor.
It's okay.
Endor with the Ewoks.
There are movies.
Endor might
there
have
are
been
shows
more interesting
for
than
everybody.
Endor. I might have watched a show about the Ewoks
before you watched this.
Watch Andor, yeah.
My number 4 goes to M. Night Shyamalan's steaming pile of hot garbage.
Wait, which one? He's got a lot of them.
The Happening.
Okay, okay. I can see that.
When we start laughing at what's supposed to be horrifying, and then we see on top of it bad acting, and it's dumb, and then we get to the end, and it's the bees and the proximity, and like I don't even know what he was thinking. Dumbest, worst, no suspense, no intrigue, no nothing. I just felt when I got to the end that I think the joke was M. Night Shyamalan's like, watch, I can put out a piece of hot garbage and get people to go watch it, and then they're going to say, it's got to be good. It's M. Night Shyamalan. Well, it was great. No, it was not great.
He's another one of those directors where it's hard for me to find maybe more than one film of his that I've liked. And I don't know how he continues to get jobs and go, because he wants to direct this. Let him go ahead and do it. It's going to lose money, but we'll let him direct it.
Just when you think, okay, they're not going to trust him, he manages to hit a B or a B+. It makes a lot of money. And go like, okay, he's back. He's not as good as his original 3. His first 3 movies were just bang, 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 really good. And then it was just like,
but since
miss,
then, he's done
miss, semi-hit. Maybe a single, maybe a double, but not a home run. I don't know if he's had a home run.
Do you remember the anime live action one he made called The Last Airbender?
Yeah, based off the Avatar cartoon.
Even that was a big stinker.
Yeah, a lot of money wasted on that one.
It's kind of like me in high school. A lot of C's, couple of D's,
But
few B's and an A here and there.
I need to go back and check out Split because I heard that was pretty good.
Split is actually one of the ones he directed that I enjoyed.
Yeah,
it's not great though. It's just shy of great. And what makes it great is James McAvoy. He's a great actor.
Watch like 3 or 4 of the ones prior, and you go, "Oh my God, no, that's a great movie compared to the other 4." If you didn't know about his first 3, right? All right, so there's my number 4. Your number 3.
Happening almost made my list, and so did The Village. The Village almost made my list.
I didn't want to talk about I just between the two, I laughed out loud at The Happening.
Just take one.
So,
Unbreakable's great. One of his early films.
That's the first one.
Really good, yeah. Very comic book like. Well, another remake on my list. How could you remake this one? I was excited when I heard about the remake, but I'm like, how can you make it better? And when I saw it, I'm like, oh, they didn't, and they feel so. This one's almost falls as far as not as bad as the Wicker Man remake, but it gets really close, and that's the Poltergeist remake. I don't know if you saw it or not. But it was almost like a fill in the numbers, color by numbers, kind of like almost like what the director of Psycho, the remake of Psycho, and I can't think of the guy's name, with Anne Heche and the guy in it. That was a shot-for-shot remake of Psycho. They actually just shot-for-shot the whole thing automatically. Not quite with the Poltergeist, but a lot of the elements were there that they tried to do again with new effects and new angles.
The CG will make it so much scarier.
It was just so... Even knowing the old film, I'm like, I could watch the old movie right now and stop watching this because the old one will scare me. Still, and I've seen it 50 times. This one I've only seen once. I didn't even get scared once. So there's another one for you.
Well, you're number 3.
There's a movie called Nightcrawler, and
is that about the guy that stages accident or shows up at accidents or something?
Yeah,
I know the movie. I didn't see it, but I wanted to see it.
So
now I'm hearing from you, and I'm worried.
It's a good movie, but it's not scary. I mean, it wasn't scary to me. It
was presented as
being scary. It's kind of got some intense scenes, and it's definitely worth seeing. But it's not one of those that you're just like, oh my gosh, you're not scared. I found myself more intrigued through the whole thing of, where is this going? And the end is really good. They wrap it up really well. But it is definitely not, a horror movie or a slasher type film. It's just more of a intriguing mystery, I guess. And so I was like, when I was watching it, I was like, well, I'm not a big horror, scary movie type person anyway. And my daughter really wanted to watch it at the end. She was really disappointed because she's more of the horror and, jump scares and everything. But it was more of a psychological thriller, I guess. But definitely worth watching, but not a horror movie.
Don't go to it thinking you're going to get scared.
No.
Okay. My number 3 goes to show that everybody's got to start somewhere because this guy has directing credits that are just amazing. But if you ever saw Piranha 2, The Spawning, what a terrible, laugh-out-loud joke of a movie.
It's almost like a parody.
You almost wonder, did James Cameron, by the way, James Cameron, did he think he was making art? Because he left that somewhere in the parking lot. I don't know what that was.
I was going to say, you do not have any idea. When you finish watching that, it's like, what did I just see?
He didn't even make a B movie. It was an F movie. It was so bad.
It was terrible.
So, Piranha 2, The Spawning.
Was there any part of that movie, I mean, even from the first scene where you were like, yeah, this is going to be good.
I kept waiting for it to be scary, and I was like, did I see too many shark movies, or did I see too many people being eaten or chased? Like that I'm desensitized, but then when they start flying, I'm like, okay, I'm done.
Flying fish.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. So that's my number 3.
Such a bad movie.
All right, our top 2.
Two popular directors got started with Piranha. James Cameron, Piranha 2, and Joe Dante directed the first one, which is actually a little more charming of a movie than the second one I ever thought about being. You're right.
All right, BK, you're number 2.
Oh my goodness! Actually, I think this is the last one I had, but I had an honorable mention though. I'll have to mention. We mentioned our favorite monsters, and I don't know if one of us said Dracula was. Dracula is a great character. We know his backstory. We know how he became Dracula and what the rules that we're supposed to go by with vampires. Well, the Dracula movie came out that I was promised it was going to be great, and I went to see it. A lot of people do like it, but when I saw Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, I don't think there was one time. There was not one time through the entire film where I felt scared, where I felt, oh, that's
not even
scary.
the one moment where they had
That's
the
scary.
shadow do something different. I was like, okay, that was pretty
That
creepy.
was clever, but not scary.
Okay.
Now there was a jump scare when he was on the ceiling at one point when he was the human bat creature thing, and the camera panned up, boom, and he came down toward the camera. Like you said, though, jump scares don't count because that can happen with anything.
Right.
That's even bad.
I can jump out from behind the bathroom door and scare you, but
right,
that doesn't mean it's
and
scary.
you have several times. So. But you weren't dressed as a vampire. But
no,
even Gary Oldman, who we can all agree is a great actor. Gary Oldman's a fantastic actor. He couldn't even save this movie. In fact, he might have. I don't know what he was trying to do, or he's taking direction from Coppola. But it was an incredibly unscary Dracula movie and an unscary movie.
All right,
did not like it.
That is not good for a Dracula movie.
No.
All right, Waltz into Darkness. You're number 2.
All right, so I guess I need to preface this by saying I really like Netflix, and they put out some great stuff.
Yeah, but
I even watched the first hour of All Quiet on the Western Front today, and it's fantastic. And
the remake?
Yeah, I can't wait to watch the rest of it. I
heard that. Yeah.
There's a show that's on this month called Watchers. The Watchers. Have y'all heard of it?
Can I tell you, my wife and I made it to the end so that way we could be satisfactorily disappointed and angry that we said we're not going to. Dude, I have never been more disappointed, angry, and ready to just throw something at my TV than getting to the last episode going, that's it?
I am 100% with you, Alan. That's exactly how I felt. And I didn't make it to the end.
You've got to.
So
my wife and I said,
crappy.
we're like self-flagellating Opus Dei on episode 5. We're like, well, we got 2 more to go. We're going to finish this thing. It's worse.
If I
Wherever
ever get
you
to the
ended,
point of hating myself, I will watch the rest of it.
If you get in trouble with the missus, say, you know what? As punishment, I'm going to go back and finish The Watcher.
Well, when we were watching it, the two of us started watching it, and she wakes up and says, hey, what's going on here? And I said, what's the last thing you remembered? She said, well, when this part happened. And I said, oh, that was episode 1. We're in episode 3 right now. And I tried to explain it to her, and it is so slow paced, and there's so little content.
Right.
I basically brought her up to speed of 3 episodes in about 10 seconds.
And what's bananas is the idea should have been great. The concept
should have been amazing.
And I kept thinking, they're building to something. And then by episode 5, I'm like,
they're building to nothing.
They build to literally nothing.
Literally nothing.
I don't want to be a spoiler, but it's literally nothing. I'm using that word correctly. It's not figuratively. It is literally
I want to spoil it for people because I don't want them to go watch it. It is so terrible.
The worst things, and the thing is, it's in the top 10 because everybody thinks perfect for Halloween.
Oh, perfect for Halloween, suspenseful, whatever.
No. You want to hear something funny? I haven't seen it, but listening to you guys talk about it, there's another guy that I know that's a friend of mine who's seen it, and he says it's terrible. Even this other guy that's talked to me about it doesn't like it. So now I really don't want to watch it.
There's no.
That's all I've heard about it.
The only reason you want to do it is if you want to just mock it for like.
It's not even a mystery science theater.
No, it's not even an MST.
I mean, I don't know under what circumstance I'd watch the rest of this.
I think I'd just watch Poltergeist instead.
I'm telling you,
absolutely.
We finished episode 5, and we looked at each other and said, well, it's too late to start another movie. Let's just finish it so we can say we finished it. And we were still, like, they found a way to make us even more disappointed than where we had started.
It's awful.
It's terrible.
It is awful. I'm glad I brought it up. This is very therapeutic.
It's
Thanks,
good,
guys.
yeah, The Purge.
I've heard this already from somebody
All right,
else.
my number 2, and sorry, this goes to BK because I know you're a William Shatner fan, but I couldn't wait to see Kingdom of Spiders. They advertised it on TV. They advertised it. They saw all the scenes. I was like, I can't wait to see this about the spiders attacking a town. Oh, my God. When they pull away on the last shot and the entire town is just covered in webs and that's how it ends, I was like, that's what I sat through? I sat through Captain Kirk fighting tarantulas? This is the dumbest... Well, it's not the dumbest. I've got one dumber than this. But that was I was so excited. I was like, I had popcorn. I had convinced my mom and dad, like, look at the trailers. They've been advertising. Worst spider movie I have ever seen.
I had totally forgotten about that movie, but that I would have put that on my list.
There's actually a worse Spider movie than that, but you haven't seen it. But yeah, that one's not that great. I'll agree with you.
So that was so bad.
So disappointed. I was like, come on, Captain
But
Kirk.
it was another one of those situations where it was a financial success, though. That's the problem.
Was it a made-for-TV, or did I just
that's
watch
a motion picture.
It was a motion picture.
Theatrical film. Yes,
I just remember the big thing advertising, movie of the week, it's coming. The Spiders.
But it
it's
gained
coming.
a lot of legs. Well, hairy legs on television when it started being shown on television. Yeah, there was a planned sequel at one point. Believe it or not,
I remember as a kid, I was thinking 12 or 13. I remember going, "That's
just the spiders creeped me out as a kid, but that was about it." Yeah,
I remember literally saying movies can truly disappoint you. That was my first introduction to walk away going, "Oh." Like, it wouldn't be until my first girlfriend that I'd feel that same way again. That sense of complete disappointment. Built it up, and no, it's been multiple times. But I said it took that to like hit
it's
that
just a
next,
lifelong pattern.
It was the next
really.
tier. Right. I unlocked the next achievement.
It was Captain Kirk. Yes.
So, all right. Number one, and then we'll get to our honorable mention. Number one, or I think you don't have it anymore.
I do have a number one, but like I said, I didn't put them in order. But I was told you got to watch this movie. You got to watch this movie. It's from 2014, and it was called The Babadook.
I heard that it's supposed to be really scary.
And you're right, but well, you know what's funny is it didn't scare me. And
okay,
it's from a book series or a well-known character or whatever. And I went in thinking, well, this is going to really scare me. So let's watch it. So we both watched it. Mrs. BK and I did. And we both, after it was over, we're like, well, you know what? That did not nowhere near live up to all the hype that we received from everybody that said we got to watch it. So we didn't find it very scary at all. So somebody else may have, but we didn't.
That's so funny because that movie came up twice in the last 3 weeks from people saying, "Oh, you're looking for a really scary movie? You got to see The Babadook." I'm like, I keep hearing that.
So did that miniseries you just watched too? Came up for people to watch for Halloween, right?
Watchers,
the watchers. Yeah, I can't.
Watchers.
I can't trust those little trailers when they're wherever they fall on Netflix list. I'm like, that doesn't mean it's great because it's number 2. It just means a lot of people's been.
It just means there's a lot of dumb people who streamed it.
A lot of people got duped into watching.
Oh no, we help make those metrics possible for people like Walt to go. Well, it must be good. It's in the top
number
10.
one.
Yeah, when you know that you've contributed to that.
I have. We have contributed to the delinquency of the rest of the nation.
Right.
All right, Walt, we've got 5 minutes, so you're number one, and then we'll get to any honorable mentions as we wind down this second hour.
So this one, like all of my friends were just like, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be," and it was this found camera, and it was, like everybody bought hook, line, and sinker into this thing, and I sat there the whole time going, "When does this get interesting?
When does it get
scary?"
good?
The Blair Witch Project. I think that is one of the most overrated. And maybe that's what it is. It's overrated. It was fine. It was okay.
But
it was not.
Chances are, if you had no knowledge of what it was,
it
and
would have been
had
better.
hype, you would have gone, "Okay, this is interesting."
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it started a trend of the whole found footage genre.
Mm-hmm.
And I will credit the kids who did it. Their moms, their parents, mortgaged their house to give them up to I think it was the $90,000 budget to film and release this, and it became a ridiculous financial success.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they all retired.
But I'm with you. When I saw it, besides the shaky cam, which was bad, the only thing interesting was the way it ended.
Yeah.
And even then, by that point, I was so ready to, give me at least one thing that I'll remember. I was like, oh, okay, here it is. Oh, credits. Okay.
Yeah, I was just ready to get out of the theater.
That was one of those rare films, I call it film, that gave me motion sickness in the theater.
Yeah, the shaky cam.
Because you usually watch something shot with a camcorder or on video on a television screen. It's much smaller. This was taking up my peripheral vision. It was a widescreen. It was a big. I didn't throw up or anything, but I felt very weird and queasy watching it with all the shaking around.
That was called falling asleep.
Which if I could have fell asleep, I would have. But yeah. And there's one. I'll suggest one to you guys. There's one that's like that. It's called The Last Broadcast that came out before that. And these guys did it first. And if you see it, watch it on a TV screen. It's actually done a lot better than what they tried to do, but that's just the one that got all the hype and everything.
Yeah.
So, check out The Last Broadcast if you ever to, because I admired those guys for what they did.
Well, I think the way that they that they sold this movie to people. They got the buzz going online about, it's found foot. This is more of a documentary.
Right. These kids that disappeared, and they try to make it seem like it was almost for real.
Yeah, did it later with a Cloverfield.
Yeah, Cloverfield,
which was
found
much better.
Movie.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
Then they made the Blair Witch Project. They remade it into a full blown movie with a budget and everything. And if it's possible, it was almost as bad as that was.
All right, got 2 minutes left here. I'm going to get my number one, and I have to dip back into, once again, I got fooled by my love of Star Trek. This time, it's Dr. McCoy. That
I know what it is.
Dr. McCoy had me wondering what in the world was anyone thinking making this movie.
Did you get afraid of giant rabbits?
Night of the Lepus. When you've got actual...
That is a piece of garbage.
Bunny rabbits on a miniature set.
God, forgotten about that one.
They don't even look like monsters. It looks like it looks like what an 8-year-old who's discovered, I want to be a filmmaker. And that's the film they make in their basement. Mm-hmm. And they can't afford anything, so they just go get their sister's pet rabbit. And then they try to superimpose, What a terrible, not... horrifying. It's horrifying that I watched it.
Well, let's be honest. When we're talking about that movie, we should be talking about it on a podcast so we could really use the words that describe what we think about that movie.
We are not doing this segment justice being in the FCC world.
No, we are not. We are not.
Would it have been better if they had classified it as a comedy? Maybe. I don't know. If it just had a different description to it.
They did not sell it as a comedy.
I know, but it would have been received better if it just
I think if Bones had just gone, I'll pass.
Why did you do it? Maybe he had a contractual obligation where he was over a barrel, like a Roy Scheider.
But DeForest Kelley,
his whole acting career, and you're like, you're doing Night of the Lepus?
Yeah, this.
All right, very quickly, got 30 seconds. I'm going to give you my honorable mention only because... I didn't want to put it in the top 5, but it is a terrible, terrible movie that I laughed at. Jaws 4: The Revenge.
Okay.
I say that definitely belongs in there.
It's bad, but it's not. It's not as bad as 3.
That's why it's an honorable mention.
3, yes, 3 is the worst.
The best part about Jaws 4 is the opening 10 minutes. After that, it becomes goofy.
And at least there's cast members from the first 2 films. Woman's in it.
All right, we've got more coming your way. We got a lot to do still in an hour at WBHF Cartersville.
You don't mind hanging back? You're jamming my frequencies.
Ahoy, mateys. This is KAB Antonio Bay. Stevie Wayne here, beaming a signal across the sea. For the men of the seagrass, 15 miles out tonight, a warm hello, and keep a watch out for that fog bank heading in from the east. Now, in the meantime, relax with me while I play this song from the Coupe de Villes, dedicated just to you.
Boy, would I like to meet her.
I saw her at a grocery store one day.
Yeah?
You would like to meet her.
She's crazy. There's no fog bank out there. What do you know about her?
She owns that lighthouse.
I know that.
Her son plays Little League with my kid brother.
She's a mother?
I thought you were happily married.
Not that happy.
No fog bank out there.
Hey, there's a fog bank out there. All right, I'm drunk enough. Let's go back.
Welcome back. Or if you're just now tuning in and joining us, this is our Halloween Spooktacular, a little bit of John Williams from the soundtrack to Jaws 2. Oh, poor Eddie. He just didn't swim fast enough.
Well, the shark made him swim fast enough and hit the boat with him.
At one point. He did pick up the speed.
He really did, yeah. It's a horrible death in that film. Jaws 2's got some memorable deaths in it of the sharks.
We talked about that last Halloween Spooktacular, and it's one of the ones that still sticks with me, is the one where you don't even see the person get eaten. You just see the reaction of everybody else.
Yeah.
And she saves the kid and ends up dying as a result. And I just remember as a kid watching that movie, just horrified, and you don't see anything. You just see the backside of the shark. Right. Well, it's moving as if it's like crunch and munch and then down.
Right.
And she's gone.
Another thing you'll learn from his book, you guys remember Jaws 2 so well. Remember the cable junction they were headed toward, where the power cables were, and it was looked like this rock island? That was a completely fake thing they built for the film.
Yeah.
The entire little rock island. And it broke away and got away from them a couple of times during a storm, and they had to chase it down. Any movie that has the word Jaws in it, you're going to have bad production problems.
Yep.
Let's just say that, because every one of them have had bad production problems.
I know we talked Jaws 2 with the author earlier, and that's why we wanted to make sure we played some of the theme there. There are so many different shots and scenes, and yet it is a shark movie. It has the similar arc storyline. It obviously Roy Scheider's in it.
Takes place in the same place.
It's so vastly different. You can't say it's a remake. Like you can't say they just did the same thing twice.
It is a sequel. It really is a well-done sequel.
It is a really well-done sequel. So, we've got a couple of things we want to make sure we get to, and I think we need to open right now with, we are all from different states. Every one of us comes from a different state. Yes. We all live now in Georgia. We all met. Our paths crossed here, but we all, you did some research, BK, and you found some interesting haunts from our respective home states.
I did, and there were several of them from each state, and I didn't know which one. I tried to pick the best, most kind of chilling one that I could get, but I did. I thought, since we're from, Alan's from Michigan, Walt, you grew up, and you're from Georgia, here in Georgia, and I'm from Alabama, the next state over. All that separate us is a state line with red clay.
That's right.
Between Alabama and Georgia. And
in an hour and 50 years.
People will get that's
an hour and 50 years.
Right. Why do the trees angle toward Alabama? Because Alabama sucks. I've heard them all. Believe me, I've heard them all. But since we're in Georgia,
best thing to come out of Alabama was I-20
and I-85. Let's let Walt start first, since you got the Georgia one, and we're here in Georgia. You've got a story, and I know about this place that you're going to talk about because I've been there.
Yeah, and funny that you'd give me a restaurant. That's ironic, but
no, it's a pirate. You remind me of a pirate too. So
that's true.
That as well.
That's true. Yeah, my peg leg.
Is that what it is?
The Pirate's House, Savannah, Georgia.
I've been there actually a couple times.
Yeah, didn't y'all go when you went to get one of your Gabby Awards?
I did when we went to the last Gabby Awards. I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we need to go back.
The one before the last one. No, that's right.
In times long past, the building that now houses the Pirate's House lent itself to passing sailors as a place to get a warm meal. Cold brews and a soft bed. However, little did the sailors know that their stay would turn out to be one of the worst nights of their life, as they were shanghaied in the dead of night after having consumed drugs that were slipped into their food and drink. The basement of the house had tunnels leading to the Savannah River, where a life of servitude awaited the unfortunate souls. So the haunted appeal. Today, those visiting the house for its delicious food hear voices in the basement, stomping feet barging about the rooms, and have even seen misty apparitions moving up and down the stairs.
You talk to anybody in Savannah, they'll tell you about that too. There, it's a very popular place to be haunted.
There's definitely ghost tours that you can go on in Savannah. A lot of fun.
Let's hope they were better than the last one I was on. Because if we did a list of ghost tours that wound up not to be scary or interesting, I could put some on that list too. It's like, come on, make this at least, put something into this where I feel like I'm going on a ghost tour. Just don't go around and go, and this place here is haunted. Now come over here. This place over here is haunted. Now this place over here is haunted. That's not scary.
Yeah.
It's not a good ghost tour. But no, that place is very well known down there in Savannah.
Yeah, it is.
I've heard about it several times.
All right. Shall we go to the Great White North?
Yeah, there's supposedly some haunted places in Michigan as well.
In Detroit, Michigan. You know, if somebody's from Detroit or if they're from Detroit on how they pronounce it. So if you're talking about Detroit City, you probably aren't from there. But if you go Detroit, you are.
And there's an Arab, Alabama, but they say Arab.
Arab.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, the history of the Whitney. Now, what is the Whitney? What's better than dinner and a show? For the residents of Detroit, that's what has drawn a national audience to the opulent dining rooms of the Whitney, a restaurant that serves not only as one of the city's most famously upscale destinations, but also one of the most haunted.
Ooh.
Here's the haunted appeal. It's not uncommon for guests to witness moving tableware, footsteps. I don't know if you witness, I guess you hear footsteps on the grand staircase, and sometimes even the hazy outlines of figures moving through the restaurant. Believed to be David and Flora, the original husband and wife duo that called the building home. So there's a place if you're ever up in Michigan, check out the Whitney, another restaurant to go out there, and maybe you get an unplanned show to go with your dinner.
Now, have you ever heard of that place going on?
I'd heard of the Whitney, but I didn't know where it was.
Have you ever heard of any other area of Michigan that's supposed to be haunted?
Honestly, by the time we moved, not so much. So,
that's right. How old were you when you moved out of Michigan?
I was going to turn 15. I was 14.
Oh, okay.
So I hadn't really gotten knee deep into all of the zombies and gross out and slasher movies. That was about to come 2 more years later.
Well, there's a lot. I bet everybody in their own prospective state would know of a place that's haunted wherever you're from. But this one comes from my home state of Alabama. It's North Point, Alabama, the Jemison Center, or it's also called the Old Bryce Hospital. It says this North Point Hospital is a hot spot for those seeking a haunting experience. A former insane asylum, Old Bryce Hospital had a reputation for treating its patients horribly, even verging on torture. Now, visitors claim to feel hot and cold spots, see items moving of their own accord, and hear ghostly sounds and footsteps, more footsteps like at the Whitney. Some have even seen the tail of a doctor's coat travel through the halls, the long lab coats that they were wearing. Screams, scuffling of feet, and the unexplained creaking of doors have been reported. Some have even reported their hair being pulled, some being hit, and discovering scratches on themselves after leaving even. Now, that's what they claim. Now, keep in mind, if you go visit this place, and if you take it upon yourself to do it, you do it at your own peril, because you'll be trespassing. It's in disrepair and it's considered very unsafe. Also, there's usually a lot of law enforcement patrolling the area where it is. So that's the Jemison Center, or Old Bryce Hospital in North Point, Alabama. It's supposed to be very haunted and very strange goings on there.
I would have to think that would be a creepy place to be in. Any kind of an old, especially like a 30s or 40s style of general hospital or sanitarium.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, just the setting. It could have lights on, and I would just feel creeped out with just that sterile, the tile, usually green and white mixed together. Oh, just always just so not welcoming at all.
Don't even
never
want to be there when you're alive.
Right.
Much less a ghost.
It could be the best hospital in town.
Right.
I was like, looking like this, I'll stay sick in bed.
And plus, we've heard over and over again of the stories of being on some sort of war battlefield where thousands of people died going out there at night or something. I don't even know if I want to do that. But we've heard
just
about
like
that
Kennesaw Mountain in our backyard.
Exactly.
You have no idea what Confederate's going to come ripping through there one night.
Or in Scotland, where a lot of battles took place over in Scotland between the British and the Scottish. I've heard a lot about that too. So, yeah, a lot of fodder for films, books, and writings and creativity. And they've done it.
Let's since we're talking about these haunted places, have you? Because this may be dipping into the past a little bit with these shows, but have you had any kind of experience that makes you go, there might be ghosts, there might be things that I can't explain? Because I didn't really have one. I had two kind of, but I don't really believe it.
I know
creepy.
one. I think I know one of yours. One of yours involves chasing your dog at one point. Did you tell me a weird?
Yeah,
story?
It was that night, the Yoo-hoo story.
Yeah,
that still is a little creepy, but that's more like, where'd the kid go?
Right.
But I don't know that I believe in ghosts. Honestly, if a ghost showed up, I'd still go, all right, whatever.
What is it? What's going on here?
Whatever. I don't believe it.
Yeah.
And then, when it rips my heart out, I'm like, well, I should have seen that coming. Yeah. And then, too late now.
And as you're dying, you're like, I still don't believe this.
Dang it! Figures!
You're going to be one now.
Of all the ghosts that are real, you're the one that has to come kill me.
Then he'll come and haunt us. Then
right.
We'll see him.
I'll see you on Saturdays at 10.
Yeah. It's like he's sitting there in a chair.
But have you guys had anything where you were just like, yeah, it's making me believe? Because my wife has one. My wife has one that she tells, and even every time she tells it, and I know what she's telling, I'm like, whatever you were on or whatever was happening, it must have been so surreal, but she was too young to be having taken anything. So she has one about being in a friend's house, upstairs, old house, and went to go take a nap and felt this thing sit on her chest and wouldn't let her get up. And she said she was there for like an hour and she couldn't speak, she couldn't talk, she was like barely able to breathe, this pressure. And then finally it lifted and she ran out and she's like, oh my God, do you know what just happened? Like, well, you just went up there. Because we talk about, she goes, I've been in my room for an hour with this thing sitting on me. Like, no, you walked up there like 30 seconds ago to go take a nap. So in her mind,
wow,
that she was up there, she was in some kind of state that she felt like something had been sitting on her, wouldn't let her get off the bed. And for her, it was an hour. But they said, no, you just went up there 30 seconds ago. And every time she tells me that, I'm like, and she's a very analytical person, but she says it in a way I'm like, if you're believing it, maybe I ought to.
I wish I did have a story. I don't have a story about a ghost. I've never had an experience. I've never had a paranormal experience, and I've never even seen so much as a... Now, I've seen a UFO, but a UFO is just that. It's an unidentified flying object. Did I think it was an alien ship? No. It was just something that I didn't know what it was, but probably a jet or something else. It was just, I wasn't ready to say it was UFO. Sasquatch, Yeti. I haven't seen anything, and I know that's boring because and part of me wants it to happen, but I think you better be careful what you wish for if I see one. But I've never seen an apparition. I've never seen a ghost. I've never had a ghostly experience other than a fake, haunted house visiting or whatever at a Halloween time. But I have no stories to tell about anything like that because I've never experienced one.
Well, anything that you have that makes you go, maybe if I kind of look at it sideways and the lights are dim and I've got kids around a campfire, I can kind of convince them it's a real thing.
I think our minds play tricks on us. I believe in a spiritual realm, but nah, I've never had anything where I'm like, this is probably a ghost. I think we all have those feelings like
you never felt like the temperature dropped suddenly in the room and get a chill as if something walked
when
through
I had
you.
COVID, man, it's crazy.
Once again, that's explainable.
Oh, yeah, right. I thought I had one
or
for
your
a second.
heaters on the fritz.
Or your heaters on the fritz, yeah. Somebody just opened a window.
Right. My wife walked in the room. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, wow.
No, but nothing like that.
No, I mean,
you just felt a presence even. Like somebody's like, someone's in the room with
you.
I
mean, I had one thing, but I think I kind of figured out. I think I have an explanation for it, but...
or a justification.
A justification, yeah. But I don't... there's nothing that I would say like, Grandpa came and, gave me some kind of wisdom from beyond or anything like that. If he did, it would probably have been a moonshine recipe. but no, I've never had anything
Write
where
it
I'm
down.
like... I mean, there one time in the basement of the New York City Library, this old lady, but it was, she was stacking books or something.
Did she say
Yes, that was it. That was the one.
Now, my wife
Can
has
I talk to you over here?
My wife has a similar story to your wife's story. She has a very similar story to that. Not when she was younger, but when she's already had her kids. In the house that we're in now, saying that she woke up one night thinking she needed to go check on her son in the middle of the night, and she couldn't get up because she felt a presence in the room keeping her from leaving the room. And I'm like, you sure you weren't? No, not dreaming. Are you sure you wasn't? Nope.
See,
she really thinks
how,
that happened.
And this is my explanation for it, but it's the time lag, but then you can still be convinced. You know how like that moment before you fall asleep, but if you're aware you're falling asleep, it can feel like you're falling and that wakes you up because your body's kind of going into paralysis? I think she went into that paralysis mode, and because she was aware of it but couldn't get up, that in her mind it was an hour. Like in her mind because of the panic. And she just had to, but I don't know.
Yeah. I think the thing for me is I've never had anything that I could prove was something. Or that I could go, there's not a valid explanation for
And this says a lot about how I think about you two guys. You two guys are the two guys that I know in my life that if you came to me one day and you actually sat there and looked at me right in the eye, either one of you, and said, last night a ship landed in our backyard and started telling me details about what happened.
It was this big fire in the sky.
Yes.
You two are two of the guys that if you told me that, I would have to question what's going on because I would believe it because I don't think there's just some people that that are going, oh yeah, right, like he said that happened. This guy's a kook. I grew up with him in school. I know what he is. But some people were to tell you, like, hey, Alan, I saw a ghost last night, and it did this, and I know 100% that I was awake. Some people carry more gravitas than other people, and I would probably believe it there at that point. But no one that I've known that carries that much weight has ever told me a story that I could believe. So that's another side of it.
Well, they always make for some fun stories around the campfire.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, I know I have made up my fair share.
You can embellish anything.
I was going to say, I can spin a yarn.
You can spin one.
Yeah.
Or you can take the explainable but leave out why it happened and leave just enough of the truth in it that makes people go,
right.
It's freaky.
Well, and I think that's one of the things is that people I know who have told those stories are often people who are very creative, who are very... their mind is very active and stuff like that, and I'm like, yeah, but I can see you kind of embellishing something. You know, we all have those feelings when you're in maybe like a dark room getting something that it's like, oh, it feels like somebody else is here. It feels like somebody's watching me or whatever. And you can kind of see how the brain can spin up from there. And so some of those stories that I've heard come from people like that. But then I've got friends who, go out camping or go out hunting for days or whatever, and they've got crazy stories, and you're like, yeah, okay. Something happened.
It's just unexplainable.
It's unexplainable.
Yeah. My mom saw her mother in the kitchen cooking one day after she had died. I'm like, well, okay. And I'm thinking, my mom, okay, my grandmother just passed away, her mother. She's fresh in her mind right now. She's missing her terribly. That's how I kind of explained that away.
Yeah, I can understand that. I've been through
how many ghosts are just
grief
people you're seeing that are gone, that just your mind's making you see them. So anyway, there's a lot of that.
I think sometimes, and my wife and I were talking about this, like, how do we tell a story that might be plausible enough and then still creep you out? Because sometimes you might catch a shadow out of the corner of your eye, and that's the stuff that we were having this round table, and we were asking the girls, like, well, what scares you? We're trying to figure out, like, what is it that causes the hairs to rise on your neck or on your arms or make your eyes water? Like, for me, if I get a really creepy feeling, my eyes will just water. And one of the things we talked about is the movies that do this to us is if you're looking at something like a statue or a painting, and then the camera comes away and you look back and you realize it's changed. You're like, did it change or did I just see it differently? And that always is like, did that come alive when I wasn't looking at it? Because it's not moving right now. I'm staring at it, it's not moving. But then you look back and it's like and it moves back to the original position. Like, that stuff makes me go, okay, I get the willies on stuff like that.
Yeah, sure.
And John Carpenter's directorial way that he would make a movie has a lot to do with a lot of the Italian horror directors. They would do the same thing. There's a great scene in Halloween where Jamie Lee Curtis is in like the foreground to the left of the screen, and it's shot widescreen. And then Michael's lying down in the background. She's just had an incident with him, and he's lying down, but she's facing us. We as the audience can see the entire thing. Well, he just sits up. She doesn't see him set up, but we see him set up. So it's not like a shock scare. We're sitting there, a lot of people in theater going, he's behind you, he's getting up, she can't see
You feel
it.
like you're voyeuristically in the scene.
And that's
like,
another way of doing it. Yeah, that's a great way
but John
to set
Carpenter's
that up.
good at that. I will tell you, having
really
shift the subject, a lot of his movies, especially his earlier ones, he sets his camera in places where you feel like you're in the room as a sort of as an unrecognized third person or
Which
fourth
we
person.
are when you're watching a movie.
And we're like, I feel really weird being in this room right now.
Yeah.
And they don't know I'm here.
Right. But the way he puts the camera, it makes you feel, and I think that's why you want to yell at the screen.
Right.
And because you feel like you're there.
He would catch grief from some people going, well, you're showing the audience what's about to happen. That's supposed to happen like this. He's like, no, this works. This works too.
No,
this build-up works.
I'd argue he's a pretty good director. He's had a couple of flops.
Why would somebody talk to him about that? Yeah. And his flops didn't come till later in his career, in my opinion. Yeah.
All right. Before we take our bottom of the hour break, we still got to get to our movies that were based more in reality or have a more real end. One of the things you want to talk about is if money were no object, and you could go to a costume party dressed up like whatever. You could have all the fabricators and makeup technicians.
But it's got to be scary, though.
Yes.
Scary.
Oh, you said it has to be scary?
Yeah, it has to be very scary. You want to scare people.
Okay, well, then I've got one that is and one that isn't.
Well, that's what I said, scary.
Okay, scary. Well, then it'll be my number one. Because I only have one. Then I'll not mention my other, and I will not make sure that I don't get laughed at. So...
It might scare somebody. You can tell us what it is.
All right. Let's, I think, whose turn is it to go first? Is it you, BK? I think it's you.
Oh, is it my turn?
Yeah, you go first.
It is now?
Money or no object.
I'll give you my second one and save my first one for last. You guys said you haven't seen anything lately that really scares you. You know,
Right.
She said your wife said, hey, "There's nothing as an adult that scares me anymore."
Right.
What's
There's
your-
no movie that makes us go, I can't
last
sleep.
Thing that I watched that really scared me as an adult, and it really scared me, was it scared me in a different way though, but it still sent a scare through me. Was the show Stranger Things has got some scary moments that scared me as right now as an adult when I watch them. And if I could have a costume of Vecna from Stranger Things, and it looks exactly like it does in the show, with the vine veins moving on him and just the way it looks and his voice, that's the runner-up of the two that I would really love to have.
Vecna's a good one.
Newer. It's very, very scary.
I like it.
The scary character.
Walt?
So this would be scary because of the destruction I would wield with it, but
I like it already.
The mechanical suit from Aliens,
wow.
Oh, you talk about like the loader.
Yeah, the loader thing. That would be awesome.
See, I think you must have left out the frightening to each of us, because I put down a different costume too, but thankfully I've got one that's frightening, one that's not.
Well,
but
I can look at the email. I didn't leave the frightening out. It's in there. So.
Oh, no, I'm just
But
saying,
you know,
like,
I'm
I
sure
would
I
use
just
it for
overlooked-
utter
you could
destruction.
scare-
It would
you could
frighten
scare
me.
somebody with that
Oh,
if you
yeah.
wanted to, yeah.
Yeah, the use that I would have for it would be frightening.
Yeah, because you wouldn't use it for anything practical.
No, and you know who you are. And no, but I would just love to have that.
I'm not on that list.
No,
I'd want to use it I want to borrow it.
Oh, yeah.
Could you let me
Absolutely.
borrow
We'll have
it?
a sign-up sheet.
But I would use it to load some stuff.
Definitely.
To move some stuff at home. Yeah.
Well, right now I'd use it to blow all the leaves out of my yard. But
just burn them with the torch. It's got a
exactly.
torch.
Walt purposely
That's
leaves
funny.
his car in the driveway, gets the loader, and then moves it the extra 20 feet to put it in the
it'd be
garage.
awesome every afternoon.
Because it's cool.
Just because I
it's-
can.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool. For me, I guess it's going to be my number one, that I would want to be is if I could get, and it wouldn't be like a man suit. It would have to be a prosthetic outfit where I've got sort of like the reversed hind legs, but I would like to be like a lycanthrope, a true werewolf-looking, real long arms, a snout. You mean
the howling werewolves, the big,
almost like a cross between like what Harry Potter's werewolf is and the Howling in a sense, but the Howling was more like a big giant like wolf beast.
Right.
I would want to be more like you could walk upright or on all four, but you'd have to have the prosthetics and almost like to so where your legs look they were bent backwards like a dog's hind legs, and then. I think that would be so cool to where people didn't think it was a man in there. Like I don't want to be in a man suit. I want it to look like there's no way that's a person.
I found Professor Lupin's werewolf to be interesting, but not very scary looking. I actually thought that Sirius Black, the dog he turned into, was much scarier looking than
he
the
had
werewolf
more
was.
menace.
Yeah, he was much
but
better. Yeah.
I would say, and my kids would say, having watched it as a younger kid, that werewolf transformation for them is probably like our werewolf, American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
Like for them, like my girls still say that was one of the most horrifying things to watch.
see that.
A character we loved, a character that we fell in love with in the movie, and we're like, this guy is so good to Harry. To have him turn into a monster in front of our eyes, and the way they did it, because of the CG makes
and
it
it's
just,
supposed to be painful when you transform into one.
It's amazing.
That's okay. I'd still want to be a werewolf.
So for me, if I could have a fully functioning, but not like can't look like a man suit. It can't look like just put a bunch of hair.
You're going to have.
I want to be a werewolf.
Spared no expense.
Spare no expense.
It would be great. Yeah.
All right. So is there you said you have a second?
Oh yeah, my number one suit. If I could get it completely accurate, menacing looking, and everything that it's supposed to do, and look like it's supposed to do, it's got to be a xenomorph from Alien.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole mouth opening with the saliva and the inside jaw thing coming out and doing the snapping thing. A complete alien xenomorph. I think I could scare a few people with that one.
Then I could fight you with the mechanical.
You could fight, yeah. Yeah, there's a purpose for your suit right
there.
there.
Yeah, there you go, because I knew where you were going.
That would be great. And Alan can come up as a werewolf, too. We just have a good time.
See, my number one would actually be the Godzilla suit.
Well, yeah, that one
that'd be
a heck of a suit.
That would be a
and
heck
what's
of a
funny
suit.
is in the movies it was a guy in a suit. So
yeah,
but yours would be yeah.
So since this one popped in my head because of I had a second one, but I'm not going to say what my second one was because it wasn't scary. But how cool would it be if you could have a fully functioning Predator?
Oh,
another great one.
The mandibles.
You got a lot of them
moving.
to choose from now. There's so many
Unfortunately,
different ones.
I would have to be in the gym and have a lot of chemicals pumped into me to
remember
ever
what I
have
said,
the body.
Whatever, you just get the best of the perfect suit.
Yeah,
on.
they'd
You
have to
look
have the
exactly how you're
muscle
supposed
suit
to.
on me.
Did you finally watch Prey?
No, because I don't have Hulu.
You don't have Hulu. Okay, you haven't seen it yet. I think it's somewhere now where you might be able to watch it. And you do another search. I think it's jumped over to Netflix.
Here's the crazy
but I'm
thing:
not sure.
it's on Disney Plus in the UK, but it's not on Disney
really?
Plus
Okay,
here.
That's weird.
Yeah, because Disney owns Hulu.
And I think it was a 20th Century Studio Productions too. Yeah,
they just keep it separate for some reason.
Yeah, they've introduced yet another Predator. That's another great suit. Go ahead and tell us what the other one was, just so we'll know. Because
I always thought it'd be cool if I could make a Tron suit to look just like that, where the light going
that'd
through,
still be cool,
have the disc, and have the disc where you could throw it and it would come back at you.
And a light cycle too. That'd be great.
A light cycle would be
Remember,
amazing.
You can have anything you want.
Yep. Could you imagine like the? Yeah, absolutely.
I'd get stuck and die because I'm no good at that part in the video game.
I know.
I always get trapped.
That it didn't do a lot, but for me as a kid seeing Tron in the theater, I was hooked, and I still love that movie.
It was visually mesmerizing for 1982. It stuck with you.
It's the first movie I watched when I got Disney Plus, followed by The Black Hole.
The Black Hole's the first one I watched. Yeah,
I was like,
that's great.
Is it? I actually went to myself, is the Black Hole on here? Like, oh my God, the Black Hole's on here.
It was a fantastic print of it.
It was. It looked great.
Never saw it like that before.
Sounded good too.
It did,
but not quite the movie. I should have left it as my youth. It was a better movie in my memory.
It's still fun to watch.
Not bad.
Yeah.
All right, we got to take a break. We are late for that. We want to say a big thank you to Southern Cove because this 8th annual edition of the Halloween Spooktacular is brought to you by our good friends over at Southern Cove. When we come back, we've got movies that we are ranking that are scary. But they're not based on monsters. They're not based on ghouls or not based on actual fantasy. These are things that could be real or based on reality. We'll talk about them when we come back.
This could be your house.
You drive me nuts.
Your family. And something is about to happen to them.
They're here.
That could happen to you. Poltergeist. It knows where you live, and it knows what scares you. Poltergeist. A Steven Spielberg production. Rated PG.
Little scary music in the background here. Got a little Halloween ambiance playing.
The studio is clean.
If you have never, we just played a little radio spot for Poltergeist, and Walt found this out when we did our little special on breaking down Poltergeist. The sound design of that movie,
amazing.
If you don't have a really good stereo system, watch that movie just one time with headphones where you can hear all of the whispers and all the overlay of all the voices. It's creepy.
And hear the moving footsteps.
Oh, the footsteps.
That's the creepiest thing I've ever heard.
Every single time. When you hear boom, 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 and you there's something thudding across the house.
Absolutely crazy.
Ugh. All right.
And when they open the door to the kids' room and everything's flying around, a little needle compass thing starts playing a record like it's a needle.
Yeah.
Then a TIE Fighter from Star Wars toy will fly by, and you hear the TIE Fighter noise.
Yeah.
The ghost knows what it sounds like, so it wants you to hear the TIE Fighter just like it does in Star Wars. That's great. I do want to remind everybody, we still have a bucket of candy here. You come by the studio, 7 North Wall Street. If you're local, come to the front window, look at us. Just write the word Spooktacular on a piece of paper, wave at us, and I will give you, if you didn't get any candy tonight, here's a way you can get some
It's massive.
Big bucket of candy right here we got at the studios. Come by and you do that, and I will bring it out and present it right to you with fanfare and everything I can and just give it right to you. You can have it. So there you go.
All right, we've got 20 minutes left, guys, until the witching hour, which, of course, hopefully everybody's going to be safe on their way home. Don't cross any black cats, and be careful you don't go under any ladders, because it is the witching hour coming up. We have one more specific segment, although I do want to get to Walt's phases of death from your cemetery tour. But we have one last thing that we had all put down some movies. And this was a pretty good idea. This was movies that could be based in reality or feel real. This isn't about monsters or giant beings or space invaders. These are movies that could be like, that's creepy because it could happen. So, BK, we'll go. I guess it's my turn to go first, right?
Yep.
So I'll go first. I will give you my number 5 as we make our way through this list. And I do have an honorable mention, but it's a stretch.
Will you go ahead, cute little Tron kid?
For me, number 5 It is based off of an actual serial killer, a serial killer who wanted to make a suit out of women's skin, and so it became one of the most highly acclaimed Academy Award-winning films. But Silence of the Lambs is my number 5.
Great movie.
I think the idea that we could be living right next door, and some of these stories we find out later in the documentaries that we watch on these serial killers, you may have no idea what's going on next door. And that's the creepy part, that you could literally think that somebody's just asking you, can you help me move this in here? Or can you meet me? I got something in my shed I need some help with. And next thing you know, you're victim number 22.
Yep.
John Wayne Gacy did it. Nobody knew what he was doing.
Oh, that's...
No one knew what he was doing.
The number of bodies is ridiculous in that story.
Just to praise Netflix, because I beat them up earlier, but their documentary on John Wayne Gacy is excellent.
It's very good.
It will scare you to death.
I have not seen it, and this movie's not on my list either, but they made a movie called Gacy.
Yeah.
And it's the guy who played the Francis from Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Oh, yeah.
Pee-wee's friend, played him chillingly great. It was a great rendition of it.
All right. Walt, we're going to go backwards.
Well,
You're number 5.
I was going to take an opportunity to take another shot at Fire in the Sky, but I think my number 5 actually agrees with your number 5. Silence of the Lambs is just a phenomenal movie.
It's so good. And I don't know how you say his last name. Ed Gein? Is it
Gein?
Gein. That's the guy that it's based off of, is a guy who literally wanted to make a suit out of women's skin because he wanted to become his mom.
Yeah.
Like, that's a kid who's got issues.
Just reading the Wikipedia on him. Don't read it alone. Don't read it at night. Don't read it in a dark room.
Didn't he also would go exhume bodies and then take the skin off and made a lamp out of a person's face, like a lampshade out of a face, the skin? Just that's a... So yeah, Silence of the Lambs. Silence of the Lambs for you. BK, you're number 5.
I'll tell you right off the bat, 4 of my 5 films on my list are based on the life of Ed Gein.
Wow.
Well, there's several of them that are based off of that.
Them. Well, no, 4 on my list are.
Okay.
Of my movie list. And number 5 is a movie called Deranged from 1974. I think it was the first movie made about Ed Gein. The character's name in the movie is Ezra Cobb. They changed his name. Didn't want to make him, the character or whatever, because it was still fresh in everyone's mind. But it's called Deranged, and it stars a guy that you guys are familiar with. It's an actor named Roberts Blossom. And when I tell you who he is, you'll go, oh, that guy. He's the guy, the weirdo guy, that sells Arnie the car in Christine, the old guy.
Oh yeah.
He's also
Shut it off!
He's also the guy that was in the first episode of Amazing Stories about the old man waiting for the train to come through the house and take him away to heaven or wherever he went.
Yeah.
That was him as well. He's also the very old man in Close Encounters of the Third Kind that says, I seen me Bigfoot once. The old guy out there waiting for the aliens when Roy goes out to sea. That's Robert Blossom. Well, he plays Ezra Cobb in Deranged from 1974, directed by Alan Ormsby and co-directed by Bob Clark, the guy that went on to direct all the Porky's films and the other movies he did. He did a horror film called Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things and a lot of other movies.
That is true.
So Bob Clark, that was their first movie they did. So there you go.
Good
That's
advice.
My first one.
That is good
and it's
advice.
a chilling movie to watch, and I think it's probably out of all these one of the best ones, but it's one of the little-known ones that was made about Ed Gein.
Oh. All right, we're back to me. My number 4 now of movies that are based in some sense of reality. I really liked this movie. It has Johnny Depp, and it's set back in the time of the Jack the Ripper.
Oh yeah,
it was based off of a graphic novel, and they did a really good job with it. And it's a very plausible Jack the Ripper story called From Hell. Really well done.
I know I've seen that. When did that come out?
It was probably in the 90s.
Yeah.
Who are the brothers that directed that?
I forgot the name of the brother. I knew you were going to ask me that.
It's not the brothers that turned into sisters, was it?
No.
Those are the ones that directed The Matrix.
No, I know the names of these guys, and as soon as I do...
One of those directed by the Something Brothers.
But it's Johnny Depp, Heather Graham. Johnny Depp does a really, really good job. He's always got a great accent. By the Hughes brothers, Albert and Alan Hughes.
Yeah, that's right.
But it was a graphic novel, so they did have something kind of work from. But the behind the scenes and watching because I've got it on DVD, which is always fun being able to see the behind the scenes and the making of, to recreate this old British setting down with the lifestyle, trying to capture the prostitutes because that's who Jack the Ripper went after, and to try to capture the look and the feel, and having this guy who is trying to figure out who it is. To me, That's just another serial killer story, but I just love the way that was told.
Huh.
From hell. All right, you're number 4, Walt.
Zodiac.
Ooh.
Excellent. Great movie.
The Zodiac Killer.
And the Zodiac Killer is always
Are we all going to pick serial killers?
Probably. Close, yeah. But it to me, from what I know of the case, and I've read a lot about it, and actually talked to one of the detectives who worked a little bit on it, the movie is pretty good. It's fairly accurate. They don't always take a little license here and there. But unsolved, a lot of, him writing letters to the police and the newspapers, and, he had the big cipher that people finally figured out. There's speculation on who might have done it, and all the as an investigator, I'd probably rule every single one of those people out. I don't think they'll ever know unless somebody goes through old Uncle Jim's footlocker and finds the mask, the gun, and the knife. But excellent movie. Jake Gyllenhaal and a few other.
Wouldn't it be ironic if the Zodiac Killer fell prey to a different serial killer, and that's why we'll never know what happened to him?
That would be amazing.
Yeah, Dexter got him.
Dexter, yeah. Well, my dad always talked about with Atlanta child murder, their biggest fear was that he'd just get killed on 285 in a car wreck, and they never find it.
Never find out who it was,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
So,
BK, you're number 4?
Number 4, another film based on Ed Gein called The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
This is the movie that Rex Reed called the most horrifying motion picture I have ever seen. This film is positively ruthless in its attempt to drive you right out of your mind. This is the horror movie to end them all. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. From New Line Cinema. Rated R. No one under 17 admitted without parent or guardian.
Now, watching this movie, I saw this movie way too young. It's like Jaws. It's a lot more intense than Jaws when it comes to a little bit of violence and what it's rated. But the way the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is put together, I mean, it was a success for a reason. It just wasn't a fluke. You watch it, it had a very low budget, but when you watch the movie, it almost looks like somebody turned on a camera and just followed people around because of their natural reactions, and they're almost not acting. It's just like, I'm just watching people react to this and running away from these psychopaths. One of them, likes to put on the skin of someone and kill people. More than one do. Now, it was loose. This was loosely based on the Ed Gein thing, but that's where it drew inspiration from. And it chilled a lot of people, and it chilled me too. And I still get the creeps watching. If I see it now, I'm like, that creeps me out. And if it still does that when I'm an adult, then that must be a pretty well-made movie.
It's one of those movies, and a friend of mine watched it not that long ago, and she's like, I can't do this. The tension, I can't. I don't even know what's going to happen next. It's like it builds that sense of something's coming, and then when it does, you're not prepared for it either.
The opening scene is in a graveyard with the camera focused on a corpse that's been pulled out of a grave that's tied to a big tombstone, and it just pans back as you hear news reports over the radio as it pans back, and you see the entire body just tied there, incredibly decomposed body tied to a gravestone.
And ironically,
it's chilling opening.
There's very little blood of any kind, but people will swear there's tons of it.
Isn't that weird, though, how that happens?
Yeah.
Either they've heard it from someone else. Oh, don't watch that. It's a bloody movie. It's terrible.
I think the most amount of blood initially is the guy that cuts himself with his pocket knife.
In the van. That's about it. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
You're like...
And compared to other slasher movies, that's not a lot.
Right, no.
Yeah.
Okay, my number 3. This one it's sort of like your Ed Gein here with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The nut of the story is 100% true, and Wes Craven drew on that story, but I'm going with The Serpent and the Rainbow, which had to do with the zombification and the whole idea of using certain pufferfish and chemicals that could put you into such a low sleep, people thought you were dead, and then it's the idea of being buried alive, and then sometimes they would come back because they would have dug themselves out, but because they were still under the power of the drug, it created the idea of the first zombie stories, the idea of zombification.
Bill Pullman, right?
Bill Pullman in that. It's a really, really well-told story. So if you've never seen The Serpent and the Rainbow, definitely has to do with a guy who gets himself embroiled in a group that decides to use that drug on him. And it's what's scary is you're aware that you are not able to react. And the idea of being completely helpless and somebody in the room with you, it just creeps you out.
It has a creepy movie poster too. If you remember it, it's Bill Pullman, and it's a faded, like someone's airbrushed him on the poster, and he's halfway pulling the top off the coffin, and the catchphrase at the top it says, "Don't bury me, I'm not dead yet." And it's the whole poster's creepy.
It really hits that nerve about I don't want to be buried alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Walt, you're number 3.
My number 3 is Barry's number 4. That's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and
it's on a lot of people's lists.
Yeah, it
really
has
is.
to be. It's one of those. It's just where does it fall? So, but great movie, and one of those that you're like, this is too horrifying to be based in reality, but some people are horrifying.
And when you try to explain it to people, you're like, is it creepy? Yes. Is it scary? Yes. Is it weird? Yes. Almost everything you could say. The only thing is even some comedic parts about it, which is odd. But the guy in the wheelchair, believe it or not, is a weird thing to be funny. But it's all of those things.
But it leaves you always feeling like discontent.
Terrible.
Like you're just like
it is.
Like it's you never feel at ease anytime watching it.
No.
Even when you laugh, you're like, okay, it's funny, but I
thing.
feel weird laughing. Even it's just
Not even during the calm parts.
And it's edge of your seat the whole time. And I think too the most disturbing part is that you kind of go, I can't write this off because it's based in reality.
People are capable of some of these things.
Yeah.
All right, BK, you're number 3.
Wouldn't you say that doing this list is interesting because sometimes the human is the biggest monster? Sometimes,
absolutely. Is.
I mean, he is.
Yeah.
He is in Frankenstein's story. That's true. Well, my number 3, the next movie based on Ed Gein's life, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, Psycho. If not, maybe a lot of people consider the best one. Even though it may not be the most factually accurate one, they did make a movie I think called Ed Gein, which was more of a biographical movie about him, but I didn't think it was that great, even though it was a more factual movie. But yeah, Psycho. What can you say about Psycho? It's one of my favorite films anyway, even if it hadn't been based on something that really happened. It just makes it creepier to think that it is. But a lonely guy living in a little house on the hill that's really connected to his mother. And he runs a hotel, loves to kill people dressed up like his mother and talk in her voice. And everything, how many times has Psycho been parodied? The music, Norman Bates. You say the name Norman Bates, everybody knows. Oh, I've never seen Psycho, but I know who he is.
Oh, how many people make the noise with the stabbing gesture?
Right, and the violins from Bernard Herrmann. Alfred Hitchcock, that movie is great, and he was always good for showing you less. Less is more. So, everybody swears there's nudity in the shower scene. There isn't.
No, but let's face it, he is the father of suspense.
Yeah, and it's built up. It's built up in Psycho, and you can't shortchange Anthony Perkins as an actor as Norman Bates either. Because we were talking about the black hole earlier. He went on to be in the black hole. So whereas like, oh, that's the guy that was in Psycho. Now he's in the black hole because that's what he was known for was Norman Bates, and what a role it was. But that movie had sequels too: Psycho 2, Psycho 3, which was directed by Anthony Perkins, and Psycho 4, which was a Showtime movie. All of them are actually really good sequels in their own right. If you've never seen them, they're actually pretty good. And him like Sigourney Weaver was one of those actors that stuck with it, even though he'd gone on to maybe bigger and better acting jobs. They still had respect for the old movies they're known for.
All right,
Psycho.
We've got 7 minutes. We've got our top 2 left to go.
2 more.
My number 2. I know that since this movie came out, and I know it was based on a real story, and you have all this stuff. Now you're starting to find out, well, was it faked? Was it real? But it still goes as one of the all-time best haunted house movies, the Amityville Horror.
Still a good movie. Yeah.
The idea of something in the house, some presence, some feeling that affects almost everybody differently, and things are just happening, and then you wonder, is it happening in my head? Am I seeing things because I'm going mad, or is the house really haunted, and where do you draw that line? And it's one of those movies when I was a kid, I probably should not have seen it at the age I saw it. The scene of him seeing faces in the fire.
Yeah.
This was just as my dad had finished our basement because we had an unexpected brother coming along, and my dad had to finish the basement to create new bedrooms. And the big thing in Michigan was oak paneling. So we had paneling. And in my bedroom, I would suddenly look over at the paneling, and I'd start seeing the swirls and the whirls, and I'd suddenly start seeing faces looking at me, and I couldn't go cry to my mom, and I couldn't say, because then I would have had to admit that I watched the movie I was not supposed to watch. So I had more than one in a row sleepless nights trying to deal with the fact of those images in my head and living in that room looking at all the swirls of the wall.
By the way, that paneling was big in Georgia and Alabama as well. Not just Michigan.
I think it was a mid to late 70s thing.
Yeah,
yes.
It was, yeah.
Anywhere kids were watching
the
movies
Amityville
they
Horror.
shouldn't be watching.
Yeah, and we all did that too.
You're number 2. We got 5 minutes.
Amityville Horror.
Amityville Horror.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
That's great.
I mean, just great movie.
It's so good. BK?
And the two eyes in the window, the pig, that's the same. I don't know why, but that's the one that got me from Amityville. It drove me crazy. My next film, another Ed Gein movie. Then you've already mentioned it. It's The Silence of the Lambs.
So good.
Talk about one that's based in reality that could happen. That movie disturbed me as an adult really badly. And it still does. Even when I watch it, I'm like, still gives me the creeps.
It's
Anthony Hopkins.
The rewatchability of that is just, you can watch it all the time.
It was just on the other night. I think we were watching it, yeah.
All right, so my number 1. This shouldn't be a shock because it is my number 1 all-time horror movie. It's the movie that I still say is the scariest movie I've ever seen. And because it is based on a real, now granted, completely different coast. It was in New York where this kid, a boy, was supposedly possessed by a demon and had multiple priests who were assaulted by this force that saw chairs move across the room. Obviously expanded just a little bit in the novelization, but The Exorcist. Still, any movie that has to do with the possession of somebody where you might actually be aware that some force has taken you over creeps me out, and The Exorcist is my all-time favorite movie that could make my Catholic beliefs say it's possible. If you believe in angels, you got to believe in demons, and there are demons out there.
Yeah, there are. There are. Some of them are in human form. Well, my number 1 is Poltergeist. So,
that I did not know until I started looking up when we did our Poltergeist that it was very loosely based on a house, but its occurrences were kind of what the people that are the paranormal investigators describe as, this car moved across the floor. It took 8 hours.
Yeah, right.
But supposedly paranormal investigation, noises in the house, hearing things and seeing things move, but I had no idea.
Yeah, when we worked on that, that's the first time I'd heard that. I did not know that was based on a true story.
Well, we've been talking about John Carpenter on and off all night, and there's a guy that was he wasn't immortal, he wasn't supernatural or anything. He was just a guy from a psycho ward. His name was Michael Myers, and my number 1 film is Halloween. John Carpenter's, not his first film, but the first one that put him on the map, in my opinion. And to me, to this day, I just watched it again 2 nights ago because it's Halloween and it was time to watch some films. And I'm like, I haven't really watched it all the way through quietly in a while. Fantastic movie. It's not a slasher movie, not like Friday the 13th. It's a very well done movie about a guy that's obsessed and they can't stop. Can't stop it.
We've got just about a minute and a half. Walt, Phases of Death.
So at the cemetery the other night, Oakland Cemetery, at the Halloween tour, one of the people speaking said that in Mexico there is a tradition that there are 3 phases of death. There is the actual physical death, when we take our last breath and die. Then there's the burial, and that's the second death. And I was scratching my head thinking, what could be the third, final, most horrifying death? And he said, that is when everyone forgets you and they never speak your name again. And I thought, that is a horrifying thought to have.
And for me, for some weird reason, I dislike the third part the worst.
Me too.
I don't know why. The other ones are horrible, but the third part affects me worse than the first 2.
Ironically, I'm suddenly thinking of A Christmas Carol when Scrooge goes and sees the ghost of Christmas future and there's no one.
Yeah.
No one that cares. No one that cares. The only people that are there are mocking him for the fact that no one cares. That's horrifying.
That is horrifying.
To think you made no impact, that nobody would want to be there.
But there were still people that knew him that didn't go. But you're talking about when it's so far in the future.
And they have like 30 to 40 unmarked graves in that cemetery of people that
we don't know who they
are. Don't know where they came
from. It is very sad.
It is.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end. The witching hour is nigh, 45 seconds away. Thank you, BK, for the topics tonight, for bringing author Michael Smith on. That was fantastic.
Thank you, guys. It's always nice to do the Halloween show every year.
Walt, thanks for that last little bit. I know kind of a nice way to end it. That's why I wanted to bring some music, some creepy music. And folks, you guys out there that's hung with us till midnight, thank you so much for being there. Don't forget, Southern Cove helped make this show possible. And if you have a desire to hear it again, or if you missed out on parts, watch for BK's Escape Pod podcast or The Wilder Ride. That's going to do it for us. It's midnight here on AM 1450, FM 100.3, WBHF, Cartersville.
And happy Halloween.